What is this executive order? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Look, we've got to be thinking 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years ahead. At the same time, we're focusing on the immediacy, which is life, safety, and property. And so that's exactly what we're doing with disaster assistance, making sure people are getting their applications, addressing the issue of fraud. And that's an issue we've got to address. Price gouging. So executive orders on price gouging, recovery. We want to get inspections, units like this. We want to get our inspection teams out here. They're already starting to get out here. We've come up with some timelines so we can get within the next few weeks all that done so people can get their insurance claims. We can then start the big contracts to remove the debris, to address all the hazmat issues. Same time as I got to button up the canyons here as it relates to potential flooding of a lot of atmospheric rivers. Remember, we're in the middle of winter. This is January. In fact, the day of this fire, not a stone's throw away, as the crow flies, there was snow right up the mountain here, same day as this devastating fire here in Altadena. And so all those things have to happen concurrently. But here's the big thing. I'm worried about issues of rebuilding as it relates to scarcity, as it relates to property taxes, meaning scarcity of resources, materials, personnel. I'm worried about time to getting these projects done. And so we want to fast track by eliminating any CEQA requirements. I got Coastal Act changes that we're making. I want to make sure when someone rebuilds that they have their old property tax assessments and that they're not increased. So all of that's been done in the executive order we just announced.
CEQA, Governor, and the Coastal Act are both environmental regulations. And if you're going to be suspending those temporarily, are you concerned about problems that may result from the suspension of those environmental regulations and a potential abuse by developers?
Yeah, we're not going to, and within this executive order, we frame those abuses.
Can you imagine that they're talking about as concerns potential abuses by developers in the executive order, which is years in the future? This is such a classic bait and switch in terms of don't look over there, look at this executive order that's going to help you in the years to come, when there's not water in the fire hydrants right now. And I made a joke like, man, he should have just signed an executive order that fire hydrants should produce water. I'm going to play it out because it's classic. This is an iteration of Parkinson's law of mundanity. Here, let's just play this
basically bookmark that in the context of maintaining the existing footprints. The Coastal Act, they allow just a 10% variant. So we're going to be very mindful of that. California leads the nation in environmental stewardship. I'm not going to give that up. But one thing I won't give into is delay. Delay is denial for people. Lives, traditions, places, torn apart, torn asunder, families, schools, community centers, churches.
You know.
Can they hear me now? I can hear you. Hear a fixed sound. I don't. Does it matter? I hear Robert, but I don't see him. Guys, okay, now you can hear me, and let me just go to locals. Viva, we can hear you now. Good, loud and clear. I had to reboot studio. Serenity now. Let me get back into what I was talking about with Gavin Newsom. Did we hear Gavin? We heard Gavin Newsom. I know we heard that because I was listening to it myself. They should have signed an executive order that there should be water in the fire hydrants. I'm not going to play the entire thing. I just want to play the beginning, but also highlight that someone actually posted this unironically saying there's no way you can listen to Gavin Newsom explain the situation and say he is incompetent. I thought the person was going to say, you're right, he's a criminal. The recovery will be long, but he gets that. It's about life, safety, and prosperity. This person was not saying that he's not incompetent to add the humor. He's a criminal or criminally negligent. And like, how can anyone be so intellectually stunted? And then I saw that this person is a DNC delegate, which explained everything. I'm going to play just the first
middle class community like this.
Here.
You're here with us on Meet the Press to announce a new executive order. What is this executive order? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Pause it. We don't need to listen to this. You're here on Meet the Press to announce a new executive order. What are you going to do in the years to come to make sure that you can solve the crisis of your making today? And he's talking about price gouging and removing the red tape to rebuild so they can get inspectors to go inspect the rubble behind him. It's absolutely criminally negligent. I'm going to get Barnes's take on this, but no water in the fire hydrants. Mark Grobert was on yesterday, and one of our locals members and one of our community members who sends me a lot of good stuff sent me this guy. I forget this guy's name. I should give him the credit. a 35-minute explanation as to what went down in California. I'll play this as an intro, and then we're going to bring Barnes in. Oh, I got to do the ad. We've got our sponsor, coffee, coming up soon. Hold on.
Now for the heart of the controversy.
Yeah, listen to this.
Firefighters ran out of water. After battling the flames for about 15 hours, LA's fire hydrants ran dry. Now they have 3 1 million gallon reserve tanks up high with just gravity feed for pressure to power their hydrants. And that ran out after about 15 hours. Now, 3 million gallons of water is actually not that much. But here's the problem. This is the Santa Ynez Reservoir.
117
Right here.
million
Okay.
gallons of water.
This holds 117 million gallons. That means that this could have refilled those 3 1 million gallon tanks over 30 times. And guess what? This was out of operation. And this reservoir has been empty since February 2024, nearly a year.
We can pause it there. Why was it empty? Because there was a tear in the covering, which was allowing stuff to get into the water. So maybe it wouldn't be fit for human consumption. And it was a mild repair, out of commission for a year, 1 mile as the crow flies from the fires. Jokes aside, Gavin Newsom should have just issued an executive order last year that fire hydrants shall produce water during times of an emergency. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that and a lot more. But before anybody gets too enraged, and you want to make sure that you can start a day with good coffee, people. And I can tell you that I started a day with bad coffee today because we ran out of 1775 coffee and we had to drink Jamaican Me Crazy. Not that it was bad, but it was flavored and it wasn't good. This is the coffee to start your days off, people. Hold on one second. That's my problem here. It's delicious coffee. Okay, hold on. Let me pick something up here. Yes, people. It is time to make mornings great again. If your coffee tastes like it was brewed at a UN meeting, watered down, directionless, and catering to the lowest common denominator, enter 1775 Vitality's coffee, bold and built for patriots who lead, not follow. This is one of Rumble's partner companies as well. So you're supporting a company that actually supports free speech, and we've got some news on Rumble as well. We'll get to that. Lion's Mane, Rishi, sharpen your focus faster than calling out fake news, while Cordyceps powers energy like a Trump tweet at 2 a.m. And those hand-picked Bolivian beans are bold, delicious, and amazing. No fillers, no compromises, proudly backed by Rumble, the platform that stands for truth, independence, and the fight for freedom. Go to 1775coffee.com. Use promo code VIVA. You get 15% off. Make mornings great again with a coffee that is bold, delivers uncompromising quality, and supports the people that we love and the company that we love. Rumble. 1775coffee.com. Promo code VIVA. Okay. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into a lot of things tonight, but I think obviously we're not going to be able to ignore the elephant in the room, which is on fire right now. California. Barnes, you ready to come in? I hear him, and now I see him. Yeah, I went. Marion ordered, and I wanted to make sure that I got a good adapter so that it doesn't fritz in and out. But I'm starting to think it's actually a question of getting logged out for whatever the reason of Rumble Studio. Robert, what's the shirt about?
Making some shirts at merch at 1776 Law Center in support of Amos Miller and other worthy projects, vaccine mandate cases. That was in the news this week, as it appears that the Texas Attorney General is going to have to go to the appellate court to also get any relief as the courts continue to close the door as much as they can. But and appropriately celebrating with special milk from AmosMillerOrganicFarm.com. Got some cookies for sale that are helping us 1776 Law Center fundraiser, and they're perfect with Amos Miller's milk.
Robert, so on the menu tonight, we're going to talk about the TikTok oral arguments, which I don't know how convincing they could have been to drive the Kalshi market the way they did. I wasn't even following it, but like, holy crap, it went from like 30% chances that they're going to maintain the ban to 70%, and that seems to be where it's at right now. TikTok, California, this is stuff that we didn't get to last week. What else do we have on the menu?
There was obviously California got preemptive pardons. We got Trump sentencing, how that progressed, what happened at the Supreme Court in that regard. Some Supreme Court cases upcoming. And then I think from last week we had a few leftover cases.
Yeah. Well, okay. Look, we have to obviously address the big one. I had Grobert on yesterday, and you were on with Grobert on Friday. what's going on in California. And apparently you guys went for 3 hours on Friday talking about this.
Yeah, that and some other topics. Yeah.
All right. I mean, first question first. Let's start with the basics, and we'll get into all this afterwards. Can they be criminal negligence? At what level does this have to rise to for them to be potentially exposed to criminal negligence?
Well, I think if they did really dug in, they would find that this goes substantially beyond criminal negligence. Now, I'd say for the ordinary person, criminal negligence, it varies by the kind of case and the kind of instance and so forth. As a whole, in the American legal system, negligence is not sufficient to criminally punish anybody. Generally, it requires for criminal punishment to apply some degree of recklessness or intentionality. And negligence itself would be insufficient. To me, the bigger problem isn't just sort of they could ascribe it to sort of general negligence of the California governmental structure, and it's how people get hired and who gets hired and all the diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff and all the rest. But I think it goes beyond that, especially as to these issues, because there's been an ideological motivation and incentive to see Malibu burn, and I think that puts it in a different place.
You referenced a book last week. It was called Burn Malibu, or was it just called Burn?
It was Mike Davis has one that's the prominent one, which includes within its chapters about letting Malibu burn, and that's the most prominent one. But the title of the chapter was Burn Malibu Burn, and then there's other text out there along the same lines. And it's been a theory. It's been the left basically has thought that resources should not be spent. Especially you add in the hardcore environmentalists, the extreme ones who don't really believe in human beings. I mean, down deep. They think the planet should be for everybody except humans. And you get to that ideological formation, which a lot of the people in positions of power in California believe in. And the reason why there wasn't this big outpouring of sympathy or immediate, remedial action taken is, even though Malibu is a very liberal democratic jurisdiction, as is the Palisades, the powers that be in California ideologically think that it's a waste of resources to try to protect Malibu, and thus Burn Malibu Burn. That's part of the problem with our system is we allocate too much resources to these privileged populations, and that's where, to me, when this went up the way it did, I think if they dug in, they would find more than government incompetence. They would find an ideological commitment and people looking to profit as well. When you add in that they made it difficult to be insured in these areas, and what that means is that if your house burnt down, you can't rebuild because you don't have any money to rebuild because you didn't have an insured property, and part of that was done by governmental action as well. The making it difficult, they chose not to lift the rates and continued to refuse to take the corrective steps necessary to limit the risk of what just happened from happening. So to me, the fires are not just the product of incompetence; they're the product of an ideological contamination of the California government authorities and some federal government authorities who also failed here in the Biden administration.
I got a text that says, I want you to see this chat. It was moving fast. Someone in the community lost their home.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, I want to punch Newsom's face. We lost our house. The entirety of Palisades did not need to be decimated. Oh, and he's patting himself on the back. He's got, they've got Palisades 11% contained, but he touts his, successes before the failures. People in the chat on Rumble are saying the audio is low, but I listen to it and it's fine for me. And I think, I don't know if it's a handful of people or maybe refresh or check your volume. But Chinatown. When was the last time you saw the movie?
Oh, it's been a while. I was going to watch it on Saturday, but got sick this week with a bit of a cold and shook it loose, but not until today, actually. So it was going to be the movie of the week for the locals board. Was going to be Chinatown because it's been years since I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I have to go rewatch it because I was telling Grobert yesterday that I haven't seen it since I was a kid and didn't appreciate it back in the day, but. The ideology to let Malibu burn or to cause it to burn. I mean, the systematic failures, they can't be an accident after a certain point in time where One of the latest breaking news is that at least that reservoir, I forget what it's called, but 117 million gallons was out of commission and empty because they were fixing the tarp on the top of it, and that was 1 mile away, elevated, which would have replenished everything. The insurance scandals people are talking about, Grobert went into it about how the insurance companies were flying drones over houses to try to cancel policies by saying change your roof or we cancel the policies. In your estimation, is there blame on the insurance companies as being part of the conspiracy, or simply making the economical decision to stop coverage because it's not economical anymore?
Well, I mean, the state could have allowed them to lift rates, and the state didn't. So or they could have taken the corrective actions to reduce the risk of a fire becoming like this, which is what the insurance companies were also requesting, which they didn't. So, I mean, I'm not an insurance company fan as a general rule. My view is if insurance is a good idea, they wouldn't sell it to me. So, I'm a skeptic of it by nature. But in this particular instance, government complicity was the far more critical culprit than the insurance companies.
Oh, did I pause you there? No. Okay, fine. Robert, can you bring, some people are saying your audio is too low. Could you bring your mic in a little bit, or is it too?
Sure. How about here?
Okay, we'll see if that's okay. We'll see if that gets better. Okay, it's and now in terms of systematic ideological stuff, I mean, set aside the burn Malibu. You got DEI coming home to roast, as Grobert says. First of all, what has the state been doing with the federal funds that they get for disaster relief? Because some people are suggesting there was no financial incentive for the state to actually take care of these issues, because when they have a crisis, they get federal funds to compensate. What's the truth to that, or what are you able to?
That's only partially the case. There won't be enough funds to fully compensate. So but the state doesn't care, because it doesn't care about these populations, even though these populations vote Democrat.
Okay, I want to see if anyone's got any good questions in here. This is Nayoka says, okay, good. This is from Locals. It wouldn't be a stream without Viva starting with the technical issues. That would have ruined the experience. I'll get it. I'll get it one of these days.
I mean, there's the issues of, some people had asked about, can you refuse an evacuation order? And it depends on the circumstances. This goes back to the COVID orders. Like at what point can they force you to leave your home, for example? To force you to abandon your home, and and generally speaking, courts enforce evacuation orders is the short answer, and don't hold government responsible even for mistaken evacuation orders, which is a problem. Because as Gobert pointed out, there was an evacuation order issued in Hollywood that should not have been issued, and they haven't even said who it was that issued it. I mean, this is the problem with complete deference. I mean, the other problem with saying, oh, it's a natural disaster, so now we're going to throw out all your constitutional liberties. The government can now arrest you. The government can now take your property away. The government now can do all these things because, oh, it's a natural disaster. And somehow that makes it a magical exemption from the Constitution. But unfortunately, there is court decisions along those lines.
Another element of this insanity is that the alarms were going off, the alert messages, text messages were going off without any human. They were going off by accident, and they couldn't control it. And then
you have the criminal gangs and the illegals issue, because I mean, the reason why can't they fully evacuate? Because LA is a sanctuary city that's protecting all the illegals and protecting all the homeless. So that even though they know the homeless are setting fires, committing crimes, doing a range of bad acts, same with a lot of the illegals. Some of the illegals fly in to commit a crime and then go home right after the weekend, right from LAX. That's been a problem in the Palisades. In particular now for the last several years, that they've been, it's much harder to commit crime in Malibu because it's this Pacific Coast highway. You're between the mountains and the ocean. So good luck trying to commit a crime without getting caught there. But in the Palisades, they could, and they were. And then as soon as these things started happening, it looks like fires were set deliberately as maybe potential distractions to facilitate criminal activities, organized criminal activities. People going in and robbing homes that had been evacuated before the fires got there, things like that. And so it's a problem they've known about for forever, but because they want to wish cast it to occur, they were not ready and were not willing to do the things necessary to protect the actual citizens and homeowners. And of course, in many of the hotels that were supposed to be used for evacuees, they're full because the homeless and the illegals are there. So it's just a sign of a complete disaster that it has been unfortunately predictable about California for some time. Some of us have been warning about it. I lived in Malibu. For those who don't know, that more than a decade. It originally looked like the house that I lived in forever was gone. It looks like he may have. It was a Mormon guy who owned it. He had specially designed it so that it would have this foam encasement in case of fire around the house. Looks like it worked. It looks like actually his property is one of the few that survived. Other properties that I've rented over the years are all gone. Dukes and Moon Shadows, restaurants used to go to all the time, gone. It's just like the memories don't exist. It's just vanished off the face of the earth.
There was talk, James Woods had put out his video. His house was didn't burn, but all of the neighboring houses did. There's talk. How does eminent domain work? Like, what is the government's power or prerogative?
It should be limited, but all they have to do is say a public purpose, and they can take whatever they want, and courts let them do it.
And in terms of the fair market value or just compensation, whatever
they only have to pay you what the value is at the time they took it, and it's generally the lowest value, not the actual like let's say its development value is much higher. You don't get that valuation. The courts have gone out of their way to let the government not only take your property, but take it as cheaply as they can.
And so
it has to be just compensation under the Fifth Amendment. That's all that's required. But just compensation, they've watered down to where it's not just compensation. Let's put it that way.
No, it's armed robbery when it's coming from the government. And when if hypothetically, can they say it's now contaminated and therefore it's absolutely worthless, so we'll take it off your hand and do the decontamination ourselves?
Yeah, they can. They can also foreclose because people will have to owe property tax on property that, like they're discovering in North Carolina, even though their property is destroyed and valueless, which is another idiotic thing the governments do.
I'm going to bring this one up because on CommuTube, the Rumble rants or the Super Chats disappear. This is Beavis Wallace says, Beavis Wallace in the house. Gruber and Roberts spoke about how money was reallocated to illegals and the homeless. Where are the people made homeless by the fires going? Can the government be charged for not caring for our citizens? That's $100 Super Chat.
I mean, it should be, but unfortunately the courts don't allow it. So it's generally not much you can do, unfortunately. It's particularly the courts in California. Now, maybe some courts will reconsider some of the bad law that's been made in the past under the factual circumstances present here, but that's what you would need. Otherwise, it's very now. The plaintiffs' lawyers in California are going to try to blame this on anybody but the government because the government's the hardest party to sue. So they're going to look for private actors that could be sued,
like PG&E for the fires being started in the first place.
PG&E has a history of causing fires to be started throughout California.
I mean, but not to let them off the hook, because I'm sure they've made decisions that have been in their best interest financially, but not the environment's or risk's best interest. Fires in dry land occur. It's the nature of the beast. Yeah. There's no known. Is there any known, say, not criminal negligence, but prioritizing profits over safety when it comes to PG&E? I'd have no.
Oh yes, for 20 years. They are despised in certain circles for a good cause.
Let me bring this one up here because it's funny. The Engaged Few says, of course we heard Newsom. I can easily recognize the sound of bullshit landing on the ground of our feet.
It is going to do severe damage to his presidential aspirations.
How the fook is Gaffin still the front runner in the Democratic nominee on Kalshi, although he has dropped 17 to 13%? I was gonna to bet against him at 13% there's not enough return there, right. But
especially you're waiting 3 years for a payoff.
I'm waiting 3 years for people to forget this, and then does this sink any future political aspirations, or
it potentially it'll have trouble for the mayor, the mayor who was an idiot anyway.
Karen Bass.
Karen Bass, yeah, because she doesn't know how to handle it, doesn't care, pure ideologue, total whack job to be the mayor of a city of like the size of LA. Kind of like what's her name who ended up getting run off from Chicago.
Lightfoot.
Yeah, Lightfoot. So very similar, similar background, similar ideological orientation, similar lack of basic political skills, which she has shown in abundance. And she's tossing the lesbos off the train. The lesbos that she put in charge to run everything. She's said, "Hey, you actually defunded these things." She's like, "You're not supposed to say that. You're gone." And so you'll see some of that, and then we'll see what whether some ulterior agendas may be present 5 years from now if this property is bought up cheap and somebody gets fabulously rich off of that. But we won't know that for sure. Right now, it's speculation for 3 to 5 years. And traditionally in Malibu especially, but in LA in general, it takes forever to get approvals to develop a single home. I mean, as Grobert pointed out, single-family homes are now discouraged from being built at all.
He said that you're not allowed building single-family dwellings anymore, or they don't issue permits because they want communal living. And I said, I didn't realize that when we call it Commie California, it's literally Commie California, communal living.
That's exactly what it is. And people in the I told friends of mine to get out about 10 years ago, and some can't because they own restaurants there or their business is based there and so forth. But all those that could got out did get out.
I knew people.
You could see it coming.
Well, I knew at least people anecdotally who wanted to get out but couldn't sell their houses because no one was buying them because you couldn't get them insured. And it's like, and now I don't know what the situation is that they've burnt down, and I don't think that they have insurance. It's unreal. The eminent domain. The government just has to say now it's a disaster zone, and we claim it, and everybody is thoroughly SOL, which stands for shite out of luck. That's it.
It depends. It depends on how they develop and what they're going to use it for, because and then what compensation would be just if they're going to actually keep it. My guess is they're not going to keep it.
CB over on YouTube. I'm going to get to the Rumble rants in a second. Has there been an event of this magnitude because of this much government corruption combined with this level of media?
In natural disaster, I'd have to think about it.
This is the biggest I'm trying to think of this is the biggest in my life. I don't even want to call this a natural
Western
disaster.
North Carolina was a complete disaster too, but that was mostly the federal government.
Western North Carolina from the hurricane.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that the funny thing is not funny. It's not funny at all. I can view that as a natural disaster. I view Hurricane Milton as a natural disaster. I view this as criminal negligence. I mean, first, whether or not it started from the fire poles and the high Santa Ana winds is one thing. Then it's arson. Then it's not incompetence. When Grobert explains how they have a known problem of stealing fire hydrants for the value of the metal and they don't replace them, and that they're empty, and that the double speaking liar, whoever it was, I figured I played the clip yesterday, says, well, yes, because the reservoir, the 1 million gallon ones emptied out, but those were supposed to be fueled or funneled into from the 117 million gallon one that's empty, and it's empty, and it was a minor repair. I don't view this as a natural disaster the way you view like hurricanes, tornadoes.
No, that's true. You're right.
But let me what was it? Did I read it here? CB. Okay, let me read the Rumble rants and see if we didn't miss anything, because we're gonna move on to other stuff today. I don't care what the politicians say. Most of these people will never get to rebuild their homes. This is from the Engaged Few. The Coastal Commission will curtail Gavin Newsom says he's gonna cut the red tape. He's talking about preventing price gouging and facilitating rebuilding when the fire is not even contained yet, and it's not clear that they even have water. Of course, we heard Newsom. Got that. How did the banks holding those mortgages allow them not to be insured? My mortgage company requires homeowners insurance. Absolutely. Do we see bailouts coming? That's a fair question, because if these people have mortgages, they don't have insurance. Nobody's getting made whole in all of this. Ribo 95, that was from Tarkina 53. Ribo says, I work as for insurance carrier. We write a lot in California. The insurance board in California handicaps the carriers. They won't let you raise your rates for exposure, so carriers either pull or go non-admitted. High rates. Then we got just seen a news clip. One family saved after home. They had previously gone and bought loads and loads of garden sprinklers, put them all over the house and the ground, plus fire never passed where it was watered. Linda W. PhD, can you see the possibility that the globalist elites have conspired to destroy LA so that it could be rebuilt for the UNWEF 2030? People were saying for rebuild for the Olympics 2028 to make it a smart city because they had all these big plans. I don't think they even have enough time to do that.
No, they don't.
Non-admitted means carrier not backed by state guarantee funds for insurance, and then the rates overall are higher, and the carrier has carte blanche power to exclude and carve out items on the policy. Let's talk about Resnicks and their ownership of most of the water in California. Cali sounds just like South Africa. Third world shithole, says King of Biltong. Karantov says, as a kid growing up by the Ottawa River, I got to see from my backyard water bombers getting water from the river. Very cool. Glad to see them save California today. Not so that it should all be bad news. Let me show you this. This is from an account that says des images impressionnantes, un immense bravo à nos pilotes et techniciens qui actuellement à l'œuvre en Californie pour combattre les feux de forêt. Vous rendez tout le Québec fier. It says, impressive images, big bravo to all the pilots and technicians who are doing amazing stuff to combat the fires. You're making Quebec proud. I can't imagine anything crazier than skimming a plane.
So they're picking up water when they're skimming like that?
Yep, they're picking up water when they're skimming like that, and then they pinpoint release that water onto the ass. I don't know how they do it, because like I once drove a fish tank to a friend's house, and we had to empty it out to like 3 inches of water, and it destabilized the car to drive with that. And then they scoop it up, they dump it on a pinpoint. And they do it over and over again. They go low flying, and if there's high winds, it's outright insanity. There was another good one here. Let me see if we can pay some tribute to the heroes who are bailing out, or at least attempting to bail out the criminals. Look at this. We don't need the audio. It goes down. And by the way, so they say, why can't they pump salt water? They can't pump salt water through the machines, through the infrastructure, but they certainly could or should have thought about having a saltwater backup in the event that there's dry fire.
Because the environmentalists oppose using saltwater for fires. That's why. I mean,
and so like now they're doing it anyhow.
It's all the ideological crazies of California that the reason why they are not prepared. It's a combination of corruption and ideological contamination that put people in a position where their livelihoods and their whole life estates were could go up in smoke in an hour.
I don't understand how this is physically possible. It's like the water would slow down, and the plane when it touches it, and then they got to pay. It's amazing. So congratulations to the people who are actually helping with this, and not the jackasses that started it. I think we got everything. Let me see if I missed any. Oh, I wanted to bring up a funny meme over on our vivabarneslaw.locals.com. He said the police chief is John Candy's relative. Okay.
I mean, you see her running, and you're like, that doesn't inspire confidence at all. And so they've damaged they reduced the amount of equipment for the fire trucks and fire based on budget cuts, because they wanted to give more money to homeless, pet projects, ideological programs, illegal immigrants, and send it over to Ukraine. I mean, that they've done everything except take care of the people of Los Angeles now for a decade.
It is absolutely astonishing. Budget cuts, DEI hires, 20% of their equipment donated to Ukraine, known problems with the fire hydrants, known empty reservoir during the Santa Ana wind season. It's hypothetically, Barnes, Trump, when Trump gets in, is there some sort of federal investigation that they can look at?
Absolutely.
And so does Gavin need to get his name on the pardon list? It hasn't been added yet. It's driving me crazy. Okay, well, let's do the pardons before we head on over. We're going to go over to Rumble and vote with our feet, vote with our eyeballs, and I'll post the rest of this to CommieTube tomorrow. Okay. Not that I've been following it obsessively, because I may have placed some long shot bets and some investments. I believe that Liz Cheney was undervalued when she was at 17%. I believed Kinzinger was also undervalued, because my theory is that if they're going to pardon Benny Thompson, they're going to pardon also Liz Cheney, and I think Kinzinger and anyone, maybe all of the Jan 6 committee. I think Trump, who's currently at 4%, is wildly undervalued, because I'm thinking, especially with the sentencing on Friday, and I want to float something by you, that Biden might say, I'll pardon everybody, unification, and everybody on the Jan 6 committee. First question first, we've talked about it. Preemptive pardons. It's a market on Kalshi, and it was under 50% at one point. Will Biden issue any preemptive pardons? It was good. I thought the odds were good at 40, and now it's at like 49. No, it's at 50 somewhat percent. People say it's a thorny or unresolved legal question, but my understanding is it wasn't. Nixon was preemptively pardoned when he hadn't faced any. So it's not a thorny, opaque legal question, correct?
No. Not once they pardoned Nixon.
Okay, good. So I feel smart, and I was like, okay, fine. Those odds, it's not the legality that would impede Biden. And then some people are saying, well, he gave a preemptive pardon to Hunter. I was like, yeah, that one is 50-50, because it was sort of based on federal charges that were already filed, then maybe ancillary. So he can issue a preemptive pardon in your view, and I thought that was the case as well. Does he do it? Whom does he do it to? And have you made any predictions on sportspicks.locals.com?
Yeah, I have. I got some picks up there. But the two you mentioned were the easiest ones. Definitely Cheney. I have I think that's a more than a 50-50 proposition that Cheney will get the pardon. Maybe Kinzinger. I don't know about the rest of the committee because I think the rest of the committee isn't that concerned. It's the loyal Republicans who are loyal to the deep state rather than the Republican Party, who are going to be looking for protection from any indictment under the Trump administration, in part because they were also, not only did they do the deep state's bidding at the expense of their party and their constituents and President Trump, but they did so also at the expense of the law, and they often violated the rules and violated laws about how they went about it. So I think on those grounds, I would be very surprised if Biden does not pardon Liz Cheney before he leaves office.
And
And there may be some other Biden. Now I'm sure the Biden crime family is going to commit as many crimes as they can right up until inauguration day, and then that's when he'll probably pardon them.
Jim.
So a preemptive pardon is simply preempting an indictment. It is not preempting the crime. So what you probably cannot do is a pardon that says, I hereby pardon you regardless of what you do in the future, that kind of thing. That's where there's more legal debate. Even there's a good argument that you could issue preemptive pardons of future conduct. But that's you would go back to the privateers, right? The people forget about a lot of the so-called pirates, 17th, 18th century, were actually working for governments, and we're called privateers as opposed to pirates. Even if they were wearing the Jolly Roger, they had protection. Well, how did they have that protection? Usually some form of almost preemptive pardon is what was there. That you were doing this at the behalf of the government. Well, it wasn't formulated like a preemptive pardon, but you could say it kind of was one. In practice and effect. So there's an argument that you can pardon future conduct even. That hasn't been tried. Usually a preemptive pardon is past conduct, but the indictment hasn't come down yet, and there's been no conviction yet.
I got to ask just specific examples because Benny Thompson, for whatever the reason, has rocketed up within the last day. Two questions here. We've established that you think it could cover state crimes, or there's an argument there, but it definitely covers federal crimes.
Right. The current belief is that it can't cover state crimes, but there is an argument that it could.
And you know what? Even before Benny Thompson, my theory, just working this into Trump's conviction with Judge Merchan, is the judge gave him an unconditional discharge at a state level indictment. There was at least one of the three underlying predicate felonies was a federal crime. I think it was federal election interference, whatever they wanted to call it.
Yep.
Now that he's been convicted, what do you not think there's a better argument for Biden, the unifier, to say, I'll pardon him for the federal element to reduce his exposure for any future potential issues? Because if he was convicted at the state level based on a federal crime as the predicate act, he could in theory be indicted at the federal level. He's going to be the president, but he could do this so that, I don't know, claim some sort of unification type last gesture.
Yeah, I always thought that was a smart move. I thought he should have done that when he pardoned his son, and that would have led to be less focus on his pardon of his son. And he still has time to do that. And he could pardon Trump. He could pardon people in the Republican world. He could pardon Matt Gaetz. He could pardon whomever to try to provide some political cover for the Democratic pardons that are definitely coming.
Does he wait until, procedurally speaking, he's issued a bunch of pardons. Does he wait until the last minute to issue whatever declaration of the pardons?
I think it's going to be a mixed deal. I think there'll be some issued this week, and then some will be issued literally the last day. And I think some of his own family, if he's going to add his own family members, will be the last day.
Mm-hmm. All right, now I'm going to ask you one.
Also, by the way, the Biden family's not bashful. They're out there soliciting. That this is their last grab for cash. So the Biden, the entire family has made money for 50 years on Joe Biden's access to political power. He's about to lose that forever. That means that they're going to be out and about, cashing in as late as they possibly can, and he'll want to pardon as late as possible so that it includes anything they're about to do over the last 2 weeks in selling access to the presidency to cash in one last time.
I'm going to ask you one from my own personal perspective, Robert. Sam Bankman-Fried. I can motivated reasoning, and when it comes to Sam Bankman at 5 cents to 5% chance, I've rationalized it to myself. Am I overestimating the political clout that his family had within the Democrat Party?
Well, we're going to find out. Put it this way: if he has dirt that he's been sitting on, then he'll get pardoned. If he didn't have dirt he's sitting on, or they don't believe he does, then he won't be. If he gets pardoned, it means that there was high-ranking Democrats he could have implicated that he didn't, knowing if he kept his mouth shut, he could get a pardon from Biden on the way out.
Because he does still have an appeal. Is he? I mean, his
appeal is still pending. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. All right. And what might account for the fact that within the last 24 hours, Benny Thompson's chances for a pardon spike? Is there
must have been somebody said something publicly about it. Okay. Thompson doesn't strike me as a guy who's worried that the Trump administration will go after him, but he was chairman of the committee and that orchestrated a lot of the illegal activities of that committee. So he, Kinzinger, and Cheney would be the most logical people to pardon off that committee.
Okay. Let me make sure there's no questions on this before we move on to a different subject. Let's see here. No. Okay, I'll get to those afterwards because they're not specifically on point. Let me see if there's anything in locals on the pardons question. Okay, no, there's some other stuff. We'll get to all that stuff afterwards. All right, what we're going to do right now, people, because we are going to vote with our feet and vote with our eyeballs. We're going to go over to Rumble or locals. But here's a link to Rumble. Link to Rumble. Boom. And I'll give everyone the link to locals if you want to come over and support there and join the...
Yeah, we're discussing, speaking of pardons, President Trump's pardons, and I wasn't sure if I dreamed it. I double-checked it before I got on today. I was like, did JD get into a debate about January 6th defendants, or did I just dream that? And he did get into a debate about it, so we'll have a discussion about who should Trump pardon on the January 6th defendants.
Beavis Wallace says, sweet innocent Viva, Biden is not going to pardon Trump unless Trump hands over some cold, hard cash bonds. How much money would it cost? No, I disagree with everybody, because if he hates Kamala, first of all, he was very, very chummy with Trump. If he wants to use it as some sort of political cover, although some people are saying he no longer needs that. The dude's on his last legs and could do whatever the hell he wants. I think he would want to have it go down as his legacy because he thinks it would enhance his legacy. Yeah. From an arrogant,
it would be a smart political move, and we talked about it years ago that it would be the smart political move for him to make, and I was surprised he didn't make it when after the election he pardoned Hunter but not Trump.
Yeah, and now I say now that Trump's been convicted, he's got the opening.
Yeah, he's got everything that he could get out of all those things, politically and PR wise. The Democrats have got all they're gonna get, so why not? On the way out, look grandiose and try to deter and discourage.
Benevolent.
Look benevolent, the great benevolent Joe Biden, and try to discourage Trump's people from looking any further about a range of things that I'm sure the Biden family would like not to be looked into, and the deep state would like not to be looked into. I agree with Julie Kelly that their behavior suggests they don't think. Norm Eisen doesn't think. Biden doesn't think. A lot of the others, Liz Cheney, some others, apparently don't think they're going to be targets. They're acting, Mershon is real cocky with the way he went forward with that sentencing. Now, as we predicted, Trump would never serve a day in Rikers. Said that was all for political theater.
Oh, yeah.
We got proven correct about that.
Well, let's dive into that one when we get over to
we got the Trump sentencing, we got SCOTUS, we got who Trump could consider a pardon, and then answering any questions that people have as well.
We got Kneeboop. Let me just see what the number is. The number's got to get under 5,000. There's still 5,000 people on YouTube. Come on over to Rumble or come on over to locals. But while we've got the audience there, I will get King of Biltong in the house. Kneeboop says, get me in and I will build the wall with my bare hands. King of Biltong says, start your health journey this year with some tasty high-protein meat snacks. Biltong is packed with B12, iron, zinc, creatine, and more. Get some at BiltongUSA.com, promo code VIVA, 10% off. Did some calculations on the empty Santa Ynez Reservoir. At full capacity, it is enough to supply 13,000 hours of water to a single 2-inch fire hose. Simply no excuse it was empty. There's no question about that. And then regarding the LA fires, this is from V6 Neon. Then comes the rain and the mudslides. Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. Yeah. they're already planning for it. It's like they've already planned. You hear Gavin talking about that prospect coming up. Get your butts. Good. We're under 5,000. If anybody's watching this on YouTube and you're going to complain that there's a little blurred screen, now's your chance. Rumble, Viva Fry, or Viva Barnes Law. .locals.com, and we are making the migration now. Okay, the Trump sentencing. I didn't realize there was it's so amazing. They released the audio. They haven't had an audio released from this entire trial throughout. But when it's time for the prosecutor to lambaste Trump and accuse him of violating the Constitution, when it comes for Judge Merchan, I hadn't heard his voice before, come up and say, be holier than thou in his sentencing. Then they release the audio. Unconditional discharge basically means zero consequences, except he's living with the confirmed status of convicted felon, which is all that it was about. And when I say confirmed status, that's what the prosecutor said. He deserves, this is to cement or solidify his status as a convicted felon, which is all that they wanted. So first questions first. I know you'd mentioned it earlier. The fact that it's an unconditional discharge with no meaningful penalty in terms of a sanction, that makes it harder or slows down the process to appeal in that there's no urgency to appeal it.
Well, exactly what I said is what happened. That because Merchan put in his earlier order last week that he was unlikely to issue any incarceration sentence, that's what the higher courts relied upon for saying we don't have to get involved now. They're like, oh, he's already said he's going to do just a discharge, so there's no consequence. There's no consequence we have to get in front of. We can just take it through the regular appellate chain. Now, the four conscientious constitutional conservatives on the bench, on the Supreme Court, recognized that was inadequate. The shenanigans themselves were a disgrace to the rule of law and a danger to the incoming president. And that's why Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh said they would have stopped the criminal conviction right away to re-examine just the insanity of that entire case. And unsurprising to some of us, surprising to some of the rubes out there, Justice Amy Coney Barrett was the justice to screw Trump again and to allow the lawfare to march on again. As you know, we talked about, we were, I think, the only people warning, and Alex Jones did too, about Barrett. Said Barrett's not a reliable, trustworthy choice on constitutional issues. Her professional background, her resume, her CV, her biography all scream she's a wannabe Justice Roberts. And I got so much crap from so many people on the right who had deluded and denuded themselves into thinking that she was the next Scalia. And it's like there's nothing in her background that says she's going to be the next Scalia. Just look at her actual decisions while she was on the bench. They were horrendous. She, green-lit the Jacobson decision. She approved of lockdowns. She approved of forcing vaccines on people. She thought Jacobson, which was one of the worst decisions ever issued in the history of the Supreme Court, was one of its best decisions in the history of the Supreme Court. She came from the corporate Southern aristocracy, the same corporate Southern slave-holding aristocracy that they made sure that the black Republican gubernatorial nominee in North Carolina got smeared on the eve of the election so he couldn't win because they don't want a black man to be governor. That's who these people are. That's who they've always been. They are corporatist establishment hacks. She's deferential to the Catholic Church. So, yeah, you'll get a good decision on abortion. She's okay on gun control, so you'll get some decent decisions on gun issues. It will be a split, and that's what she's been. In all of these other contexts, everything about Barrett screamed she was going to be the next Roberts. And every conservative who vouched for her, who attacked me and others, should be apologizing. They should be out there on the social media saying, golly gee, we got it wrong again. That the Federalist Society doesn't know what the hell they're doing, or they don't care about conservative principles. They care about institutional establishment interest. They will be the first to defend the FBI and the CIA and the NSA. The fact that Barrett had the chutzpah to defend this absolutely outrageous actions by the state court judge. And again, Dershowitz has called it an embarrassment to the rule of law. Jonathan Turley, Professor Turley at George Washington University, another Democrat, called it an embarrassment to the rule of law. Fetterman, Senator John Fetterman, said it was a joke. And yet Amy Coney Barrett can't figure that out. And is it a coincidence that, remember, she was also the key judge who made sure that nothing took place towards big tech during the election? She was the one that said, well, we don't have clear evidence that the government's forcing any kind of censorship going on here, because Amy Coney Barrett is a liar, big fat liar. She took that $2 million bribe in the book deal that she got to be the future Justice Roberts, had her people leak to Politico how eager she was to be the future Justice Roberts, how she was shoving it to those Thomas supporters and shoving it to those conservatives who are stupid enough and suckers enough and saps enough to vouch for and vote for her, including President Trump himself, who got taken for a ride by his so-called conservative allies. But everybody on social media that vouch for and that attack the rest of us should be apologizing. Why do you keep getting it wrong when it comes to judges? Over and over and over and over again. You thought Roberts was going to be this great conservative jurist. You thought Kennedy was going to be this great conservative jurist. Anthony Kennedy. All you do is get it wrong. Get it wrong. Get it wrong. Get it wrong. Maybe just don't even give advice in the future. Because she has been one of the worst nominees, and one of the worst decisions President Trump made in his entire administration was Amy Coney Barrett, and she proved it once again to him directly and in person.
It was a one-page decision. It was very simply put. It basically said, given that Merchan has announced his intention to give an unconditional discharge, there's minimal risk for Trump, and so we're not going to intervene. It's such a legally untenable position, because they admit that there would be exposure if the judge were to do something different, but they're going to go on the judge's, basically stated intent not to do something stupid. But they're acknowledging that in law there's a problem, but to the extent that in fact there's no risk, we're not going to get involved. And it was one page, and she signed off on it. It was
her decision. She was the one that, if she hadn't made that decision, that case would have ended, and that lawfare would have ended, and Trump wouldn't have had to go through any of it anymore. And it's just an embarrassment as to who and what she is, and she's going to continue to be that. But I mean, I consider the irony, it's the same week that Zuckerberg proves that she lied in the record. Oh, no, Facebook wasn't being ordered by the government to do anything. And Zuckerberg goes on Joe Rogan and goes, oh, yeah, we were being ordered to do things, just like Children's Health Defense and Robert Kennedy had alleged. And so Amy Coney Barrett's willing to lie about facts to cover for big tech. That's who she is. Everybody who vouched for me, like, I'm so confused because you didn't pay attention. That's why. Because you didn't do your due diligence. That's why.
And I can't take your knowledge on this. We were discussing it, but primarily you were discussing it. And you had the insights. When it comes to Zuckerberg, though, and his recent revelations and his recent about face, I know that he's saying that. I'm skeptical. I think he was a lot more of a willing participant than a coerced individual.
Sure, but this didn't work out. Now, I think on the flip side, I've said all along about Zuckerberg, he's not political. He cares about money, unlike some others. After 2016, people forget Soros went after him. Soros was trying to short the stock, trying to wage war on him. That's when he suddenly was like, oh, okay, I'll go along with whatever you want on the elections. I'll go with whatever you want on censorship, whatever you want on COVID. And I agree with you. He was, he went along with it full scale, knowing it was wrong. His belated golly, gee, I wish I wouldn't have done it is all bogus. It just didn't work out the way. It temporarily worked for him in that it backed Soros off. Soros quit harassing Facebook. But in the end, it got him a lot of enemies. And he looks at Musk and he's like, I'd rather be where Musk is at than be where I was at. And so I think what he's saying now is sincere in that he wants out of this mess. I think he never wanted to be in the middle of the mess because he's just a greed freak more than anything else. But I agree with you. He was much more culpable and complicit than he's now letting on.
I think he's a greed freak, but I also think, my theory is he's just wildly jealous of Elon. Elon's
sure he is. Yes,
rubbing elbows with. What do you make of the fact that he put now Dana White on the board of Meta, Facebook?
Well, that's a smart move on his part. Peter Thiel, who was on the board of Facebook, tried to speak out and he was ignored. And now he sees that Peter Thiel, David Sachs, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, they're in like Flint with the Trump administration, and he's out and he's on the outs. That's why he's like, okay, I've got to. Also, CHD, Children's Health Defense, had brought another suit detailing all the ways he had violated their rights. So what he can do is restore Children's Health Defense and Robert Kennedy's accounts to Instagram and Facebook immediately. Prove you're legit. If you're legit, if this isn't just a weak political move to try to buy cover with Trump by misleading Trump into thinking you're not going to be the prick that you've been the last decade, that you weren't complicit in stealing an election. I mean, if there's anybody who's involved in stealing an election, it's Zuckerberg from 2020. He would be one of the top suspects if we were to do a meaningful investigation of what really happened in 2020. So if he wants cover and immunity from all that, then he better start with action, not just words about, golly gee, we're not going to censor anymore. Okay, restore Children's Health Defense account fully to Facebook and Instagram. Restore Robert Kennedy's account, who's going up to be nominated for Secretary of Health and Human Services, immediately to Instagram and Facebook. To the others that were critics, there's a bunch of people in the vaccine injured community who created communities on Facebook that got shut down. Restore them ASAP. So let's see if he's legit. He's going to have a chance to prove he's legit. I think the skepticism about him is well warranted. And if he thinks he's going to get out of Dodge with just some loose words on Rogan, he's wrong.
Well, it's interesting. He's got a lot of self-serving reasons above and beyond financial, but exposure legally to say, I didn't do this voluntarily. I was coerced into doing it, because we now know definitively that he censored, and wrongly, even according to his own admission, the people who were suing him. Children's Health Defense, John Stossel, Candace Owens, they were suing him for these very reasons. He seems to have admitted it out loud, but passing the buck and saying I was extorted or coerced into doing it by the government, and therefore I lack the mens rea. Although we're talking civil cases, it didn't cover his ass mode, but I think he's wildly jealous of Elon Musk.
Question. Well, because he's a power, he's an ego freak, not power freak, but ego freak.
Yeah,
and the money freak and ego freak. That's what drives that's my read on Zuckerberg, always has been. And his wife is ideological, so he was, eager to get on the good graces of the would-be big tech oligarchs, and it just didn't work, because a lot of what happened was Trump beat him, and so the smart oligarchs jumped sides to Trump, and Zuckerberg's just a little late to the party. He should have jumped sides 6 months ago. I mean, the other thing with Facebook, you have access to incredible data. His data probably showed him that Trump was going to win, because you can use the what he had.
Well, I mean, that's how people were rumoring that Elon was calling the election before the mainstream media was calling it, because he knew with internals that Trump had won. I mean, that Trump was going to win.
Right.
I want to bring up, actually, there's a question here. Then I'm going to respond to someone's accusation. At Texley says, as Robert Gavay has asked, will Trump be able to vote since he's now a convicted felon? First of all, first things first, Joe Neerman issued a retraction correction that he needed to be sentenced to be a convicted felon, said he was initially wrong on that. Now I think he's going to have to go back and correct and say he was right on that. People have been asking, now he's a convicted felon. Does he lose rights as a result of being a convicted felon, gun ownership and voting rights?
It's not a final sentence. So the sentence isn't fully adjudicated until the appeal is resolved.
All right, and now let me get to the second comment there, which is live on screen, and I'm going to bring the receipts. I love it. It's an accusation. It's not a question. Never saw the clip of your, quote, takedown of Candace you told you'd definitely post 2 weeks ago. Funny how everyone that debunks Candace forgets to post their argument. Cowards. Il Sarto, if you're going to make stupid straw man accusations, you'd better make sure that the video's not up. First of all, there was never supposed to be a takedown of Candace.
No.
Those who think like children.
You can see what her opinion is, and you can see what our opinion is.
And
contrast the two.
Now, where is it? Because I know that I posted it. The only reason
it's up on YouTube. It's up on Rumble. It's a standalone video.
So I hate to be mean, but I did this twice. Maybe you meant that as a joke. Barnes's alternative theory of the USS Liberty is there. It took a little time to get up because I couldn't download the video from locals, but it's up there. So thank you. And it was never a takedown. It was a alternative rebuttal, and I think it's more plausible than Candace's theory.
And it's easy. If the focus was taking down Candace, that would have been really easy. Stalin's not Jewish, you lunatic. So there's just one. There's one. She has said some really incredibly stupid things over the last month. But the focus wasn't on those dumb things. It was the high-profile debate about USS Liberty, and we just contrasted our opinion with hers. It wasn't a takedown of her. If the
No,
goal was to
you-
take down Candace, we could do so, and it'd be very easy. I'm just being real. Queen Candace,
everybody
as she
makes
likes to know,
mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Reed Hoffman, for those I didn't
he
make
just
this.
sees Jews everywhere. I mean,
Well,
let's be
right,
honest.
Reed-
Like,
Reed-
here's a Jew, there's a Jew. Oh my God, over there's a Jew. They're all Jews.
Well, look, Robert, you cannot argue with statistical overrepresentation, but Reed Hoffman, people, not a Jew. At least not as I can tell.
Well,
But
it's
so
like
maybe you
even
go-
Fastic Tick History is going through the common denominators of the site. I highly recommend the site TIK History. That dude is like super brilliant. The fascinating stuff. I don't agree with all of his perspectives, but great, incredible insight. And what's interesting is he was going through. So there's the stereotype that a bunch of the communists were Jews, and he's pointing out that there's actually something common in with these fascists and Nazis and communists, aside from an ideological shared belief in statism that they all had. That the other component is not that they're really Jewish. They're disproportionately anti-Jewish, even those that had Jewish history.
well, but this
So,
is
like
why
Karl Marx had Jewish heritage, but it's fascinating. It's disproportionate to this group, though, right? Like, there's always been self-hating Jews and self-hating Christians, all that kind of jazz. But what's fact is that disproportionately, those Jews that were associated with communism or fascism, particularly communism, were disproportionately hated the fact that they had Jewish ancestry. Karl Marx
Well, at
was
least-
a notorious anti-Semite, even
Well,
though
but
he had
this is-
Jewish ancestry. So it's a little tidbit. The other thing is they're all crazy. He's shown that they have this unique belief structure that basically they all grow up with distant, rejecting father figures, smothering mother figures, an ideological belief system that focuses on altruism as a belief structure, but it is later stripped of its religious tenets because they reject the underlying religious tenets. Whether it's Lutheranism, a lot of them were converted Jews to the Lutheran tradition. But he points out that they almost all of them abandoned it, but basically needed to be taken care of psychologically. That like he goes through this fascinating. He shows how Pol Pot, Mao, Stalin, Lenin, Trotsky, all these people share these rather unique upbringing, cultural experiences, social beliefs.
Robert, you
It's
might not be.
fascinating.
You might not be making the point that you want to be making, and they say, yeah, a lot of these Jews have genetic mental disorders.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly. So, all that
what's the manufacturing consent? Noam Chomsky, another good example of a Jewish guy who's been very critical of Israel. I won't call him an anti-Semite or
Oh, yeah,
anti-Israel.
I mean, some of your strongest. I mean, Max Blumenthal is, the gray zone is Jewish, probably one of the leading anti or Israeli skeptics in the influencer space. So, but it was an interesting Tick History. I recommend if you want to understand the real. It has nothing to do with Jewish religion, Lutheran religion, anything else. It's an unusual family upbringing that shaped a lot of these guys. That's really
Barnes.
is along the way of attachment theory of personality. Yeah, I'm a Zionist pawn.
It's such a that's the type of thing a Zionist policy. Oh, but I'll say on the one hand, your argument doesn't debunk the statistical overrepresentation, and some people are going to say the Jews culture have been academics, so that they might not be doing it in the name of Judaism, but it might be part of the history and the culture of being Jewish. Others are going to say that Jews have been historically very progressive, even if it means progressive to the point of destruction, even of their own nation states. So, but anyways, bottom line, you can't ignore the statistical overrepresentation, but you got to make sure that you don't get it
well,
wrong.
especially if you get into Teak history, you realize the Judaism. The most significant thing that's unique to them is how much they were ashamed of their Jewish heritage. That's what stood out. I was like, okay, there was some psychology there that's afoot because it would stay strong. I mean, like a lot of Lenin's crew were anti-Israel. Stalin who's not Jewish, Candace, was the one who thought he could cut a deal with Israel and was the first country to recognize Israel was the Soviet Union, and then turned on him when he realized that Israel was going to side with the U.S., not the Soviet Union. But it is fascinating. If you want to understand true correlation and causation, I recommend Teak histories of various texts. Also, it's critical to understand like the unique ideological belief of shrinking markets with the form of socialism that Hitler adapted. If you understood that about Hitler, you could predict everything about Hitler in ways Neville Chamberlain, everyone else couldn't figure out. That yes, he was always going to go to war. He was always going to go to the war, at least in the East, and he was doing so because his belief about the economy. When you have a nutty belief about the economy, it can lead to disastrous consequences. It was like we were talking about with Malibu. You have these, when you have some nutty idea that Malibu should burn, it's going to lead to policies that lead to Malibu burning. But yeah, Tick history, highly recommend it.
How do you spell it? T-I-C-K or T-I-Q-U-E?
Just T-I-K.
Okay.
History.
Very cool. Okay, so Trump sentencing Merchant. He's not on the list for pardons.
But speaking of pardons, there's, should Trump pardon all January 6th defendants?
There's no question. Well, in my view, there's no question. I've been on something of a, campaign to promote it because it's at this point I'm very sympathetic to even the violent ones, and I'll put that in quotes. The footage is coming out now, and I mean it's additional footage has come out showing the cops opening fire on a crowd to agitate them specifically, and throwing tear gas in for no good, like as if they don't have the right to what was up until the moment of peacefully protest. The question's going to be, well, who's going to be the first one to get pardoned? Enrique Tarrio? I mean, there's odds on this, but do you think Enrique gets pardoned?
Well, I think what threw everything for a wrench today was whatever JD said. I saw JD's follow-up comment, but I didn't see JD's initial comments.
Was it on Twitter? Let me go see if I can pull this up.
I know his response was on Twitter, that somebody perceived what he said as Trump is... What he came back as, he said Trump's going to do an individualized assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my own view, I get what JD is saying. My own view is any individualized assessment would come back to the same conclusion. Every single case, did the prosecutor follow the rules? No. Every single case. You can cite examples of that. Were they prosecuted in D.C.? The answer is yes in every single case. That means the grand jury was contaminated, the judicial bench was contaminated, and the trial jury were contaminated. To me, that alone, adding in the hidden discovery that's applicable to everybody could have benefited from these disclosures that are only now coming out and others that are still hidden, means the process was so tainted that, to JD's point, that anytime the process was completely contaminated, we got to throw those cases out. That applies to all of them. I think trying to go... Now, if you want to go through and prove that with each one, you can. But again, to me, look at what all of them have in common. All of them went before a D.C. grand jury. All of them went before a D.C. trial jury. All of them went before a D.C. judge. That was the problem from day one. The grand juries could not be impartial. The trial juries could not be impartial. The judges could not be impartial. Plenty of evidence and data for that. They can get, expert opinions from Richard Barris, People's Pundit Daily, did the big data poll, because he surveyed D.C. versus other jurisdictions, and it was clear that D.C. was the most prejudiced jurisdiction in the country and the most prejudiced jurisdiction he'd ever surveyed. And he's been doing trial research for me and other people for better part of a decade that he'd ever seen. And so to me, that's why I've been encouraging them to have that focal point. Focus on the process. Don't get waddled down. It was the same argument I made early on in the Alex Jones cases. Like, don't get stuck arguing the details of who said what when, but look at the process. Is the process a process we can have confidence in producing a competent constitutional comporting outcome? And the answer has to be no for every single January 6th defendant. So just pardon them all.
Because what would the mechanism even look like? They're going to go one by one. There's how many? There's 1,000 of them. How many?
There's 1,000 plus. There's 1,000 plus.
And what I mean, I don't know how it even works in general. Someone comes to the president and says, "Here, you should consider this pardon." Does he have people?
Goes to a pardon committee. There's usually somebody in the Justice Department and somebody at the White House who is assigned handling pardons, and they go pardon requests, commutation requests, etc. Some of what's being considered are labeled pardons under like Cauchy's betting rules. Cauchy considers a commutation also to be a pardon. I was curious about that because technically, like Roger Stone, for example, didn't get a pardon. He got a commutation, so he didn't have to serve any time, is my recollection. I think the felony status, hung with sticks with him, if I recall right. So it varies case by case. But I get the idea of trying to do an individualized system. The problem here is what was so systemically bad was universal to all of them. And that's why, originally I started off the same position JD had. So let's separate out the violent from the nonviolent. The violent can, go through the legal process, see what happens. The nonviolent should all be set free immediately. But now, when I've seen how bad the contaminated the entire process is, I can't have confidence in any verdict in a January.
You can have confidence that every verdict and process was tainted. Period. Full stop.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of degree. Someone in our locals community posted us the link here. I think it's this. Let's hear this here. This should be, it's 30 seconds.
As President Trump says there's a process, where is the line drawn on who will and wouldn't be considered for a pardon?
I think it's very simple. Look, if you protested peacefully on January the 6th and you've had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. And there's a little bit of a gray area there, but we're very much committed to seeing the equal administration of law. And there are a lot of people, we think, in the wake of January the 6th who were prosecuted unfairly. We need to rectify that.
All right. Well, I still like him. I still trust him. I think that might be a confusing. That's the politically correct caveat.
Well, it's the same position I had 3 years ago, but it's not the one I have now. And the reason for my change, and I think he partially reflected that because he put up later, he clarified that if the process was constitutionally contaminated, then that too would be grounds that what he meant to say was all nonviolent people are getting pardons no matter what. Mm-hmm. Everybody else may be getting a pardon if their case was contaminated. That's how I take his combined statements to mean. And I think that's the proper approach. The reason why I wouldn't, well, what they know is anybody that's violent that gets pardoned or has been accused of a violent crime, that will be the media's highlight, right? They won't talk about, they would like, at least initially out of the gate, for every single case that gets highlighted to not be a violent case and get to the violent cases a month or 2 months from now, for example, after a full review is done of their case. I get that. And that's a smart political process to take. The reason why I have a different approach is I think I want the world to focus on the process. The process is bad. Now, the best way to do that is to add other cases that are not January 6 cases into that fold. Add and look for big names. Julian Assange, Ed Snowden, Roger Ver, Bitcoin Jesus. These are the cases, Ross Ulbricht, who he's already promised he's going to commute the sentence ASAP, day one. Do those cases as well. And then you don't have to worry so much about the way the media is going to try to portray it, because there's going to be all these big cases that everybody can't help but talk about. You know, the Bitcoin Jesus, Ross Ulbricht is, Silk Road, so-called Dread Private Roberts. These are, prominent cases in that impact key communities and constituencies that were clearly victimized by an out-of-control Biden Justice Department. But it goes back to why we have a system that says better a 10 guilty people go free than one innocent man go to prison. Well, what is that American system rooted in? It's rooted in the greatest danger to our freedoms and liberties doesn't come from our fellow man, it comes from our government. And so we always have to side with doing whatever it takes to prohibit and punish the government from engaging in bad behavior, because that is a greater risk to us than a single criminal going free. And that should be the point of the January 6 cases, that it doesn't matter what they're accused of, the process was the punishment, and the process was unconstitutional in how it was handled them. The grand jury was not impartial. The trial jury was not impartial. The bench, the judges were not impartial. They were prejudicial.
And the punishment was disproportionate given what has been issued to other people guilty of a police brutality, some of whom get bail, get bond released pending their
speech
trials.
Rights were denied. Their associational rights were denied. Their press rights were denied. Their right to petition government for the redress of grievances was denied. In some cases, their Second Amendment rights were denied. Their Fourth Amendment rights were denied. Their Fifth Amendment rights were denied. Their Sixth Amendment rights were denied. Their Eighth Amendment rights were denied. And I can go point by point by point, item by item by item, and case by case by case. So there's simply no doubting that. So if the administration will feel more comfortable if that's written up in a big form, there's a bunch of us that can do that can form the documentary proven portion. But every single January 6th defendant was maltreated. There was not a single January 6th defendant they tried in their home jurisdiction, for example. Not one.
I'm just looking at, so I just put out a tweet that said part of them all, yada, yada. And then someone says, even the feds, did you see JD's update? If what JD meant,
some of them are feds, that's fine too.
Well,
you don't know who is and who isn't. And I get that part of it. you could pardon them the former feds. You don't need to pardon because they were never indicted.
It's a fair point. It's a fair
So
point.
then then that's just pardoning everybody who was there on January 6th. That's
No,
you
actually,
could
now
do
that
that
you say
pardon,
it.
but that's a different kind. That would be the Jimmy Carter pardoned everybody who fled to
Well,
Canada thing.
I don't think that ambiguity is there. It's true. You pardon everyone who was indicted, and the only one that might include, you'd want to exclude, is Ray Epps. Okay, so everybody except Ray Epps. Ray Epps, no pardon for you. Scaffolding guy wasn't indicted. Pipe bomber guy wasn't indicted. So you pardon everybody who was indicted on January 6th, period, except Ray Epps. He does not deserve a pardon. He actually deserves further prosecution, but whatever. Hypothetically, Epps doesn't get a pardon. Can he ever be further prosecuted? Or he's got...
Yeah, there's still things he could be pardoned. I mean, to the degree that these people were complicit in an effort to set people up and did things like commit perjury along the way, there's a bunch of things they could be criminally prosecuted for. I mean, there was clearly a systematic and systemic effort to violate people's federal civil rights. So I get what JD is saying. I think the reason why people were sensitive to it, they're like, that old distinction doesn't make sense anymore because of how contaminated the process was, which JD did appear to acknowledge.
No, well, first of all, if he walked it back, that's already a good sign. I won't call him flip-flopping. I appreciate, like, it was the only politically palatable proposal at the time. Like, okay, you can't justify violence at a protest. We now know what they did as a result of whatever violence did occur.
And some of this is being spread by bad faith actors like Laura Loomer and others. That there's effort afoot to suggest that anybody that's tech tied in the new Trump administration is secretly sabotaging Trump, and they're trying to create conflict. So they're trying to Laura Loomer's out there trying to create conflict between Trump and Vivek, between Trump and Musk, between Trump and Vance. Just stick to her little space of the world. I mean, she'll be forgotten in 10 years. And ignore those kind of people that are trying to make something bigger than it is. JD it was one of the first people to speak out for the January 6th defendants when nobody else would. It's not like he's not sensitive to the subject.
No, for sure. But it's also not like, if he sincerely holds that belief, it's not like it's an untenable or radically indefensible position. Like,
it was Trump's original position himself.
Yeah. Let me
Trump
bring
just
this up.
went on to expand it, realizing that all the cases are contaminated.
Well, I think once you saw 5 illegal immigrants beating the ever-loving piss out of a New York police officer, getting released the same day, and I don't think they had any bail or cash bail, then you can sort of understand 4 years for whatever Jake Lang did is not justice whatsoever. It's an absolute injustice. 22 years for Enrique Tarrio for doing no violence. And do they consider seditious conspiracy off-site to be violence? Let me bring this up here. Jay Slick, I love it. It's like, you're arguing with voices in your head. Did you even listen to Candace interviewing one of the survivors of your liberty? Better still get him on try to debunk his statements. You don't understand. I know who she interviewed. I heard that guy. I've listened to numerous podcasts. I forget his name now. This is the guy who was on the ship at the time.
And you don't have to give him any expertise. That gives him
but not just that.
That is a dumb argument. People, look, I got somebody that was at the 9/11, was at the towers. That when they went down, so that means they have unique expert on the criminals who did it. No, they don't. That's a stupid argument. Stupid argument.
Well, it's stupid also because
you're making an argument from the left. These people are arguing a left position. Oh, you're a victim. Now you're morally superior to the rest of us. You're now intellectually superior to the rest of us because you're an almighty victim. That's leftist ideology, which is what these identity politicians people do. And those out there that are pretending, I don't really hate Jews. Yes, you do. You're just a Jew hater and a bigot. Go home and admit it. You're not smart enough to make competent, capable arguments with other people. So just stick to trying to harass people in the chat. But it's one of the dumbest arguments. I keep, but you should talk to the people who are the victims. They have no moral authority. They have no unique intellectual authority. None. Zero. Zilch. In fact, some of them are clearly lying about knowing they were on a spy ship. Why there are people from the Liberty? Why did so many of them lie about they were on a spy ship? Why is that? Save me the nonsense. This is a dumb argument made by dumb people, made by people like Candace Owens, who wants to be popular with the haters and bigots, so she can line her pockets the way she always likes to line her pockets.
But I'm telling you this, it's not. I don't blame anyone for believing that guy. But there's two things here. His statements don't need to be debunked because some of them are true and then some of them are interpretation. And so you can believe that he believes his story in his heart of hearts.
But he has no moral authority because he was a victim. None. In fact, I'm skeptical that he's telling the truth when he had no idea that he was on a spy ship. Really? These people, a whole bunch of them, we had no idea we were on a spy ship. We had no idea we were in the middle of a war zone. Do you not pay any attention to the news? How dumb do you have to be a sailor in the middle of the Mediterranean, in the middle of the 6-day war, and not know you're in the middle of a war zone? You have to be either an idiot or a liar.
I don't know if Thog is saying this in support or in contradiction. Robert, what are the most unreliable...
An eyewitness to what? Oh, he was an eyewitness to a plane?
Planes bombing a ship, yeah.
Nobody's disputing that, idiot. Nobody's disputing that. The question is, why? And is the absurd interpretation that Israel did it deliberately, is that the one that makes sense? Because that's the dumbest possible argument, and that's the one you idiots are making.
All right, well, I wanted to bring that up because I knew that was going to set Barnes off. Release the J6 POWs from DC.
That is what they are. They're POWs. It's like, even if you had a POW that committed a violation in war, when they're all been maltreated, you release them all.
I want to say no more excuses. Let me get to this one here. Merrick Garland may be trying to sneak operatives into the J6 pardon. So pardon all Gen 6s arrested before Election Day. Investigate anyone. Look, by the if the worst thing that happens when you free 1,000 political prisoners is you might get 6 operatives who snuck their way in. Fine. I mean, it's a reasonable concern, but let me read this one here. Avi 33, Kane 33. As a Jew, I can say communism was a Jew movement. However, those Jews ain't Jewish. Even my grandparents were commies and blacklisted by the FBI. However, Stalin wasn't a Jew. Continued. I think the Jewish attraction to communism is religious in essence. It's the promise of a better world utopia. For me, it's an embarrassment. Well, also,
that's what's fascinating about the Tick history guy. The disproportionate nature of it fits with them being anti-Israel. Most Jewish communists were intensely anti-Zionist, by the way. Right? They never mention that. Go back and read your Jewish communist. They were an anti-Zionist. In fact, they started as an anti-Zionist movement at the same time. In the late 19th century, you had these 2 different Jewish intellectual political traditions to try to deal with the world. One of them was creating Israel, and the other one was anti-Israel, and it was the Jewish communist movement. So this is the other problem where they have, like people like Candace suffer massive cognitive dissonance because they want to say, the Jews are all secretly running the world, or groups that are Jewish, or whatever the latest theory is. But the problem is you research, that's what Tick history details. What stands out about the Jewish communists is they were anti-Jewish, that they were anti-Semitic, that they hated their Jewish history and heritage. Read what Karl Marx has to say about Jews. Yes, his grandparents were rabbis. He wasn't proud of that. He was ashamed of that. So it's what's intriguing is what goes into communism is a bias against religion, not a bias in favor of religion. That's why it's atheistic. And that's when I see people try to suggest that there's somehow that being a Orthodox Jew would lead you to communism. It's like you have to have your head checked.
But a lot of people say the kibbutzes are communist in nature, and there's sort of there's some sort of communal. Communist...
Yeah, you can argue communal, but not communist. Those are 2 radical. I mean, Orthodox Jews are some of the most traditional conservatives I've ever met.
Well, that's yeah. But the bottom line, look, I can't blame anybody. See, there were a lot of Jews in the communist movement. Were they doing it because they were Jews, or are they Jews and they were doing it?
No, they were anti-Jewish. Look at George Soros, right? George Soros is a classic example of that. He is Jewish heritage. He's very anti-Jewish. He's, by the way, one of the leading funders against Israel is George Soros. It's funny how, does Candace never get around to mentioning that? Does that just slip her mind when she's busy?
Well, no, because cash? No, but I can see how people are saying nonetheless.
Did she not know? I mean, come
on. Let me go back. There's one more that came in here. Sad Wings Raging, who I know is a good member of the community. I don't know which way this is going. Remember when the U.S. called Russia and asked them if the Wagner Group was their guys, and Russia said, nope, not ours, and we whacked them? The Liberty was done the same way by our government. Same thing.
Oh, right. I know what they're saying. I mean, that's similar to what I put out.
It's our spy ship and then facilitate it being taken down.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Libertarianism, this is Paradiddle McFlam. What kind of name is that, Paradiddle? Paradiddle is drumming. I know that now. Libertarianism is overrepresented with Jews, Fried, Mies, Rothbard. It is probably all intellectual and ideological movements that are made up of disproportionate number of Jews. Yes, but that's part of people's problems. I mean,
well, and that the thing there is really that's just most of them are borrowing from histories of using Jews as scapegoats for local corrupt elite leaders. It goes back literally over 2,000 years. Is what that dynamic represents. But their point is that the Jewish tradition, because the Jewish tradition focused on reading and writing, whereas other traditions did not, with their religious tradition, that gave them an edge in any field that was dependent upon being literate and academic. I mean that was purely historical coincidence, is all that was. But again, if you want to look at the psychology of communists, you're not going to find love of religion anywhere in there. For any of them, you're not going to find any of them as loyal, deep religious people. Not Christian, not Jews, not Muslim, not any of it. They're just commies. It's one of the areas where communists have had trouble trying to infiltrate the Islamic movements, and so instead they've just borrowed from like we did, both sides on the left and the right have radicalized Islamic movements around the world to try to oppose their opponents, but they did so by going into Islam rather than going against it. That's not true of communists anywhere. Anti-religious. That's who they are. That's the nature of communism, is to replace God.
And now I'm seeing a lot of replies to my tweet. It said he clarified he's going to make sure that instigators don't get pardoned. That's fine. If that's what he meant, if that's what he meant, then please.
And that was good. Also, it's the utility to X, right? Mm-hmm. So the utility to X is that even you can reach the vice president of the United States. You can be an ordinary schmuck and reach the vice president of the United States. So that's a good thing. I think that's a revitalization of our republic. Like Ned Ryan was talking, I think it was Ned Ryan, was on with Tucker, talking about all the different issues, like the different nominations that are coming up, which ones are do or die. If Trump is going to succeed, the Tulsi Gabbard nomination, the Robert Kennedy nomination, these are do or die nominations and need to go through. And so but as Trump is looking at pardons, just expand it to anybody who is a victim of lawfare. Make that the common denominator. Don't make the common denominator they're aligned with me politically. Make the common denominator they were the victims of lawfare. That's what unites Julian Assange, Ed Snowden, Roger Ver of Bitcoin Jesus, Ross Ulbricht, Silk Road, the January 6th defendants, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro. All these people should be pardoned right away. Mackey, remember Mackey, the meme guy. Don't forget the meme guy from New York. The meme guy should be pardoned right away.
He's not even on the list. I'll say this just to clarify also. If what J.D. Vance meant to say was what he clarified since, obviously fantastic. If he is finding a way to backtrack and save face, I don't care either. It is an amazing thing that the voice of the people, what is it, Vox Populi, Vox Dei?
Vox Populi.
Yep. It's an amazing thing that in as much as Chad Cronister had to listen to the backlash of Trumpians, if J.D. Vance just wanted to find a way to back out and save face and say, no, that's not what, I won't even hold it against him. It's fantastic that he got reached because it's the only fair outcome here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where and just look at it across the board and make it a consistent, continuous effort. What it tells me is that it needs to be tightened down, that the team behind exposing the lawfare hasn't been fully put in place yet. And because if it had, JD would have the answer ready to roll. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what JD's answer earlier today told me. It's like, okay, we need a presentation that's a little bit tighter. And why are we doing this? We're doing this because lawfare is wrong, because our Constitution, we have to care more about our Constitution than anything else. Yeah. And so anybody who has been wronged by the executive branch ignoring the Constitution is going to be set free. And that needs to be the mantra. That needs to be the focal point. And for that, you can include, I include those Black Panthers, as pointed out by that so-called Black Panther Party that was supposedly in the pocket of the Russians. That was that ridiculous Biden prosecution down in Florida. Every single one of them should be pardoned. That was BS from beginning to end. Everything about that smelled terrible, smelled ridiculous. So that's another example. But look for cases of victims of lawfare. Don't worry about their politics or their ideological orientation. Look at, were they victims of lawfare? If so, we're going to set you free, because that's not, we're going to restore, you cannot restore the republic unless you undo the damage done by those who have been violating the republic for the last 4 years.
Okay, I think that's good. I'm looking to see if I didn't miss anything there. Let me get some chat over on locals. Derek Tyler says, "Good evening again, Viva and Robert. Good. Riffing off of Robert's comments on Bourbon about the COVID harm grand jury cover-up report in not finding any criminal liability. Did Bondi initiate this grand jury years-long process? Are you aware that she helped her friend Trevor Martin, family attorney Ben Crump, manufacture an absolutely false witness in order to frame George Zimmerman? Is Trump aware? Any thoughts on her reliability in loyalty to the America First MAGA agenda?"
So I thought the Florida grand jury did not live up to what it should have been. So you do investigation, you figure out, yes, these big drug companies lied about the COVID vaccine, but somehow we're going to find no state criminal violations. How's that?
It doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense. Somebody got to that grand jury and shut them down from going forward with an actual criminal indictment. And I was skeptical of this from day one. I was glad when DeSantis did it, but I said right away, if it's legit, it will have been. It'll reached out to people like Brooke Jackson, people like Warner Mendenhall, people like myself, our clients that have a lot of intel and information, but especially Brooke Jackson, who is the primary whistleblower in the country concerning the COVID vaccine. To my knowledge, they never did. And that told me, okay, DeSantis wants credit for looking like he's going to do something, but just like typical Washington, he's not going to actually do anything. And unfortunately, that's exactly what came about. If DeSantis wanted to rebuild his connection to the Trump base for a 2028 run, he needed this grand jury to do something. His failure to do it means he's going nowhere in 2028. He's going to get whooped in 2028.
If he decides to run for president.
Yeah, he will
in the primaries.
That's a lot.
You think he's going to run?
Been measuring those drapes for 5 years, not to go forward again.
Is it not customary though? I would assume JD is going to obviously run.
Yes, he's going to run against JD, and if he was going to try to stand a chance, he needed to deliver on some things, like the COVID vaccine issues that the Trump administration hasn't yet committed to delivering on, and yet he also not delivering. Sadly, my view of Bondi is she's average. So not bad, not great. Nowhere near what Matt Gaetz could have been, or someone like Matt Gaetz. Mm-hmm. So she's not Bill Barr, but the person's criticism about her connections to the Zimmerman case, and just think about it. When have you talked about Bondi in the last 4 years?
Well, I
don't trust that an attorney general is going to somehow be a great federal attorney general when they did nothing of consequence while they were state attorney general. Contrast it to the Louisiana Attorney General, or the Missouri Attorney General, or the Texas Attorney General, right? Those people are in the news every other week. Look at what the Texas Attorney General did. He actually sued Pfizer over the vaccine because he said, you guys are lying about it. Kansas Attorney General did the same thing. He also joined in lawsuits against the censorship, joined in lawsuits against a whole bunch on Second Amendment issues, on the border wall issues. But there's a bunch of issues that, even the Missouri Attorney General has taken lead actions on, even though he does, like the border issues isn't right away an impact. But where was the Florida Attorney General? I mean, nowhere special. So I saw this as a Susan Wiles pick, and so I hope Bondi does well. I hope Bondi proves me wrong. Now there are people underneath her that are good appointed. Harmeet Dillon at Civil Rights Division at Justice Department would be excellent. Terrell to be underneath her would be excellent. I had a person that was chosen from Paxton's office to be heavily involved in policy at Office of Legal Policy at Justice Department, also excellent. So there's been a ton of excellent ones. I'm just not a big fan of Bondi. I'm not a critic. I'm just not a fan. She's just done nothing to prove that she's going to do anything impactful, memorable. But maybe I hope she proves me wrong.
Well, or there's time. I don't know if she withdraws or something. I mean, he can shuffle this. He can change his mind
he won't with her. She's expected to be the first person confirmed.
Okay. I mean, I presume the way you're describing her, she'll have she'll have the least problem of all getting confirmed.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
That by the way, it was always a bad sign. So,
yeah.
I told people for years, someone who gets no controversy when they're nominated is someone who's going to be useless.
I'm going to read this. Tequila Reposado says, Viva and Barnes, you may be incorrect, Mr. Barnes. Lawfare commenced with the creation of the non-federal Federal Reserve Corporation. Let me see. I read something about Tulsi being forced to promise to not go after FISA. Is this, if it's true, is this binding? This is from Becky S. I haven't heard anything like
I
that.
see that as very different. So basically, Tom Cotton, who's a scuzzbag, he's a war whore from Arkansas, deep state Republican senator, said he would not support Gabbard unless Gabbard withdrew her opposition to the FISA laws. So so Gabbard was put into a choice. She could either make that the issue and fight it out, or say, well, at this point, that's not worth fighting over, so I'll go forward. My own view is, in the executive branch, she's not writing the laws. So in the executive branch, she should probably defer to the legislative branch, to the president, and the judicial branch as to what the law is. And so what she said is, her position as a Congress, if she was in Congress, she would not authorize it. But as the intelligence executive branch official, she would utilize whatever has been made available to her by the legislative and executive branch in terms of intel. So that's how she's going to use the information that is gathered from the FISA program she's previously opposed. That frankly makes sense because she's being charged with an executive branch position. She's not being asked to write the law. She's not being asked to interpret the law. She's not being asked to decide whether it's constitutional or not. So I don't have a problem with her. It's like Robert Kennedy on abortion. Robert Kennedy still is pro-choice up until late. He's not for late-term abortions, but pro-choice. But he said, look, the president has a moderated different position. He's appointing me. I'm going to take his position. I'm sure Lindsey Graham thought, we got an easy way we can derail Kennedy. We'll derail him over on abortion. Even though our real reason is because we're, big pharma prostitutes. And Kennedy outmaneuvered him in that regard. So the Glenn Greenwald was critical, but it's not like Gabbard could go to the off. Trump wasn't putting her in the director of national intelligence to reverse all the laws that have been passed, to be blunt about it. He's putting her there to give him better, accurate interpretation of the intel information because he doesn't trust who has given him that information before for good cause. So I think for that, she's protecting why the president wants her there and not jeopardizing it over what would be a purely symbolic fight on FISA at this point.
Okay, very interesting. Let me get there's a couple. Well, I'll get a few more tipped questions over here in locals. We got Barnes. Okay, we got that. If some low-level J6 glowies get pardoned, can they be compelled to testify? We've talked about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no Fifth Amendment. Now, unless you...
And that was from Plant Nerd, by the way.
Unless you committed another crime. So, for example, even though Dershowitz say no Fifth Amendment. However, take Hunter. He probably has a state equivalent of the Fifth Amendment for a bunch of the crimes he's committed over the past. So it's only as... whatever you've been pardoned for, you no longer have a risk of incrimination for. But that's the key. The Fifth Amendment is only gone to the scope of the pardon. You may still have Fifth Amendment rights as to things that were not covered by the pardon. Which
would be state charges to the extent they can't pardon for state charges, and therefore you could still invoke the Fifth
or federal charges that might not have been referenced in the pardon. Now, Hunter's is pretty broad.
10 years. 10 years. It's borderline preempt or retroactive. Schnookum says, Robert, what is Trump's path to eliminating DC as the court system? And can this basis of prejudicial grand jury and courts as pardon basis be used to fuel it?
Absolutely. I think they should say DC system shouldn't exist. It's proven its incapacity to be impartial and issue the mass pardons as part of that on January 6th defendants. And begin the process of ending the federal jurisdiction of D.C. having a federal court system. It shouldn't have a federal court system. And so just ending that altogether and reassigning judges and reassigning cases accordingly. I don't think they're there yet, but there are people like Mike Davis and others that have agreed with us on that. So I'm hopeful that it starts at least the thought process that there should be, the swamp should not get to judge the swamp least of all the critics of the swamp.
I'll bring up a couple here, and then we're going to get on to the other subject. Libertarian, we got that. Atheism is a religion. It is a godless religion, but it is a religion nonetheless. Religion is a system of beliefs. Yes, I agree. All right, what do we move on to now? I got to get to our list.
I think we did we cover it? Oh, I did have an update on the Roger. Speaking of pardons, the Roger Ver Bitcoin Jesus case. So, like, here's another example. If you can find a part of a case, a pardon that tells a broader story, longer story, more of a story, like this is where JD's wanting to go. He wants the first set of pardoned defendants to be grandmas who are taken, who are suddenly released, right? That he wants that to be the visual. That makes absolute sense. So I could see staggering out the January 6th pardons. Find the ones that look the best telegenically. The ones that if they're on Fox News that night, everybody's sympathetic. They're like, how did that 82-year-old grandma end up in, that kind of one, right? But the next set of ones I would do are ones like Roger Ver, because it's a story that keeps building. So this is, Bitcoin Jesus. They're prosecuting him on taxes he doesn't even owe for a time period in which he wasn't even a U.S. citizen. It's insane. It's all because he attacked the intelligence community for trying to co-opt Bitcoin and destroy its ability to financially free the world. That's the backstory of it, the real short, simple version. But he has filed now, his lawyers have now filed a motion to dismiss. And guess what it turns out? One of the highest ranking U.S. attorneys in the Justice Department at the tax division is now under criminal investigation in Spain for submitting perjured affidavits and declarations and documents perpetuating a fraud upon the Spanish courts. One of the highest ranking tax division U.S. officials is right now under investigation for trying to defraud the Spanish courts with a bogus extradition of Roger Ver. Here's what it all turns out. For those that don't remember the backstory, they went in and they legally seized all of Roger Ver's attorney-client communications over a decade. What they told the American courts in order to get an indictment, and what they told the Spanish courts in order to try to get an extradition, was that Roger Ver had been told by his tax advisors to do something different than what he had done, and that he had, according to this U.S. attorney and the U.S. government, that he had lied and withheld information from his own attorneys based on the attorney-client communications they illicitly stole, just like the Trump case, as weird parallels with how they handled the Trump case. But again, these are the tax division people that are based where? Out of the District of Columbia, District of Corruption. Well, it turns out the underlying attorney-client communications say just the opposite. Roger Ver fully disclosed everything to his attorneys and accountants, and they were the ones who told him he had no further filing obligation. Now, in American law, it's what's called a reliance defense, which means if you fully disclose in the tax, this is unique to tax. It's not true of almost any other area of law. If you disclose all the accounting information to your accountant or tax lawyer, and they're the ones who and you comply with their conduct and how you behave, you cannot be criminally prosecuted in America. It's called the reliance defense. It's 100% defense. It means you can't even seek an indictment or seek an extradition. The U.S. government knew Roger Ver had a perfect reliance defense, so they lied about it to not only the U.S. courts, but to the Spanish courts and the Spanish government. Here we have a high-ranking U.S. government official under criminal investigation in Spain for lying about Roger Ver. That's as good a case to pardon tomorrow as soon as President Trump gets in there as you can get there. I mean, and it shows how insane the system has got. One of the highest ranking officials has the cojones to lie to a Spanish court, knowing he at some point would get caught lying to the Spanish court and thought it wouldn't matter. By that point, either Roger Ver would end up McAfee'd and Epstein'd inside a Spanish jail, or he would be stuck somewhere in solitary in a U.S. jail. So that's these when we dig in, and that's what I'm hoping that what JD should learn from today. Have smart, sophisticated people like himself whose sole and whole objective can't be him because he's got a lot of other things on his plate, but other people like him to do these reviews to show what's wrong with these cases so that when it's time to issue the pardon or the commutation, the whole world understands why. And you also use each case to expose how our system got so bad, how, I mean, it was what, I think it was Ned Ryan, if I remember right, we were talking with Tucker, but talking about the republic is at risk of collapse. And it's cases like this we need to use to highlight to restore the republic in the first place.
Just checking Roger Vere's odds. He's at 30% up on Kalshi. I don't know if he's.
I mean, my guess is that's going to continue to go up as people see. You can go to freerogernow.com. You can see he's got all the motions to dismiss up. I'm going to post links to it on the locals board. But I mean, it was astounding. I was like, wow.
So, Robert, what's interesting, and I'm asking it, like Ross Ulbricht on Trump's pardon list is 79%. On Biden's pardon list, it's 2%. What would be what would be Biden's deterrent to pardon Ross Ulbricht? Like, other than just disinterest, does he have anything to do with incriminating or inculpating the Biden administration?
Well,
and why would
I mean, essentially, the only reason he would have to not pardon any of those people is the deep state hates Ross Ulbricht, hates Roger Ver, hates Julian Assange, and hates Edward Snowden. And so the degree they are calling the shots would be why he would not even consider pardoning or commuting them. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's what I've been trying to tell people, that the left now is the left loves criminal prosecutions and punishment.
Yep.
Just of the right people. And what you're seeing in live time is you're seeing the Democratic president pardon or commute the sentences of some of the most violent, nasty, sick human beings on the planet. But they're people who didn't try to commit their crimes against the state. They commit their crimes against weak and vulnerable people. And that's just fine in the Democratic world. Oh, those are people that just had difficult upbringings, and so we should release them. Those are the people they want to give no bail to. They want to release without any bail restrictions. Those are the people that he's pardoning or commuting the sentences of. Whereas the people who are targeted for political reasons, who've harmed nobody in their whole lives, like Julian Assange and Ed Snowden and Roger Ver and others, those are the ones they're targeting for harassment, because they committed the real crime of challenging the deep state's power on the U.S. politics.
Let me read a couple of tipped questions from our locals community. Jonathan G94 says, Mike Waltz is a total shitbag. He wants Ukraine to lower the conscription age. And there's a screenshot which says Trump's future advisor urges Ukraine to go all in and lower draft age. I have to check that headline. Not that I think
about that background.
Yeah, I'll check that.
I like what Waltz has said about the administrative state. That's the scope of my knowledge of him. I don't know him personally.
Okay, I'm going to screenshot that and just make sure it's not that I would doubt our community would be wrong about that or spread malinformation or misinformation. Do you think RFK Jr. will be able to influence the Dems for a more populist attitude, asks Boopsy.
I mean, I think that's going to be the key, right? If Trump is going to be successful, and if Trump is going to have a legacy, and if J.D. Vance is going to win in 4 years, then the populist side of Trump has to dominate, and he has to succeed. Mm-hmm. He has to succeed in that area. End the wars, number one. Fix the economy, number two. End the illegal immigration, number three. And four, restore the republic and the rights related to the republic. And that's where a lot of these pardons and commutations come in.
Excellent. Now I'm going to do, there's one here. It says this is from B. Tessin. The Biden administration disregarded all the laws regarding immigration, and more so, my question is, why doesn't Trump and his cabinet do the same, only to help America instead of hurt it? If Tulsi would agree, then do the opposite, that what's the president he's been doing for, how would one open the borders to improve America? I mean, the argument would be people want Trump, and we've seen it with the Vivek Elon, to shut down immigration and above and beyond illegal, but even with H-1B visas and etc. Okay, last week, or was it last week? We didn't get to some of them, Robert. And I think it was which ones did we not get to? The AI FTC.
It was the big tech-related ones.
I'm gonna forget them. I remember there was one where it was AI false. Did we do the AI false advertising, or did we not?
We didn't get to it last week.
Okay, so I didn't look. It's funny that I don't know why they use AI to generate false positive reviews, and it's just so amazing. You don't know what's real anymore, and I don't know. Like, are we all going to have to agree to license out our voices so that we can protect fake AI in our voices hawking wares? I don't know if we're going to have to agree to go AI simply to own
or the people that have used AI to come up with fake Barnes. They have Barnes giving advice on how you can give your 8-year-old cocaine and all this. They created a Breaking Bad.
That was related to Ricada, I presume.
Yeah, they came after me for that. Some of them were funny. So I don't mind. But the question is, where are the limits? When
Well, this case basically said that you can't use AI to generate fake positive reviews. I guess fake
Right.
negative reviews goes hand in hand. But is that to say that you can use real fake people, like real people, to the extent fake reviews to the extent
as long as you disclose it? Because I mean, most ads, that's not the real person who ate the product. You know, and it'll say in the bottom, you know,
so you can
actor or performer.
but is it not going to be like, okay, we disclose that they're AI generated fake reviews, so they're not real testimonials, and they're not real people either. So good luck filtering through reality. I never take a review I take it with a grain of salt in all cases, period. But so what's the underlying importance
built into AI that it finds lying very easy is what I'm discovering, because it's what's leading to most of the lawsuits involving AI is some version of, like in the law context, it's a bunch of lawyers getting sanctioned because AI loves to invent fake cases. You know, they'll just create these fake cases. You know, some idiot, some poor sap lawyer like Michael Cohen will quote him, and they'll be like, hold on a second. The judge will be like, this case doesn't exist. And it appears something inherent in AI that AI almost gets a kick out of lying and making stuff up, or just can't draw the distinction morally, intellectually, or otherwise. But here, it was supposed to be an AI service to help you get positive reviews from your customers. And what it decided to do was just fake it. Just make it up. They're like, oh, rather than try to find somebody that actually uses this product, we'll just pretend. You know, and so they got caught, and the FTC is bringing suit. But it's something about AI loves to lie. That's my only takeaway from it. So far.
I'm having. I don't. Grok counts as Grok is. There's a difference between AI and
now Grok. I like because it's Elon's
Grok
AI, and all you have to say is it is the only honest version of me. Like he goes, who is Robert Barnes, the attorney? It actually gives you an honest version rather than like Wikipedia and everybody else where they're always out trying to defame you for ideological purposes. So I was like, oh, that's pretty good. That was pretty nice. And then you can do other stuff. It can write a screenplay for you. It can write a poem for you. It is kind of fun and interesting so far.
Robert,
have you looked up? Have you gone to AI and should I trust?
For me, it's pretty neutral for me. It's deciding can be blah, blah. Let's look. Here's a nuanced look at his credibility, professional background, legal career. He's an attorney who's represented high-profile clients. Public persona. He's known for political commentator, often appearing in media to discuss law and politics. He's associated with George Gammon, etc. Credibility and controversy. Oh, let's hear this. Criticism of motives. There have been many concerns regarding some of his actions, such as the initiative to sue the Federal Reserve, which some critics have labeled as potentially opportunistic, suggesting it might be more about generating funds than achieving legal outcomes. Sons of bitches. Political alignment. Barnes is known for his populist views and has been associated with conservative media figures, yada, yada, yada. His betting on Donald Trump election also shows his political leanings. Controversial cases. Let's see, who do you got? Sandy Hook defamation. Okay, this is still pretty lame in terms of critique. Analyzing trust. Let's see here. Ultimately, trust should be based on your evaluation of these actions and the outcome of his legal work and how his public statements align with the values. All right, that's very
that's very fair,
very neutral.
It was it's stunningly. It's what media used to be supposed to be, right? You actually read it and like, oh, that's pretty fair. That's not tilted one way or the other, not biased one way or the other. So so I do like that. But if you're hiring AI, be aware that it tends to want to lie. It's a little bit of what's the the Space Odyssey 2001? Hal, sorry, George, I'm gonna have to shut that down now.
I just asked Grok a question which I can't make public about me, and it said, the question you've posed uses offensive and derogatory language that promotes anti-Semitic stereotypes. Okay. Oh my goodness, that's funny. Now I feel bad. I might be in the bad books with Grok now. Oh, okay. What were the other tech cases that we missed last week?
Somebody said I would bet on Satan if he was a lock to win. Well, maybe. It depends on the circumstances.
Well, there's a difference between making money on political markets versus, I it's my weakness. I am blinded by what I believe should be the case and not what I understand will be the case. Derek Chauvin was one answer. Like, I should
further. Oh, that takes us. There's a couple of more. There's the net neutrality one we didn't get to, and the big tech targeting kids were the other two. But speaking of. You just mentioned somebody's name.
Derek Chauvin.
You see, it turned out more evidence. So one, they hid evidence concerning what he died of. That there was some of it we knew about, but some of it they hid. that's now coming out in his federal proceeding, his post-trial proceeding. And it turns out that the key expert witness for the police, for the law enforcement officer, committed outright perjury. She got up and said, "Oh no, we were trained not to do that particular knee move." Not only were they in fact trained, she herself routinely utilized it.
Well, I remember seeing that at the time. Like that didn't strike me as being, that element didn't strike me as being new.
Somehow it
But
didn't come up at the state trial, but it's coming up now at the federal trial.
because they had a whole, I thought
maybe
they had a
she
video.
denied it, maybe it was, whatever it was, but there's actual photo visual evidence now of her utilizing the exact technique that she lied to the jury about and said was never used. We were trained not to use.
What was her stature, or what is her stature?
Well, she was given a promotion after the trial.
Oh my goodness! No, I the chat's gonna correct me if I have a false memory. I thought that evidence.
I thought they proved that about one person, but not as to her.
Because I thought I remembered seeing a video, which or a memo that indicated.
Maybe right. I mean,
I'll go back and check my memory. But okay, fine. So show that you had his cause of death, which showed no blunt force trauma to the neck. I love it that the people are saying, well, he didn't take enough fentanyl to cause him to die. We saw him consume drugs, and once you do that, but he was a habituated user, so that couldn't have been a contributing factor. What else with that?
That was the main thing. But so it looks like the federal court is considering throwing out his verdict. But that's, remember we talked about the time we said, because the politics is so heavy, they'll lynch him now. And 5 years from now, they'll say, "Oh, that verdict shouldn't have never happened."
Well, yes, but also your insight at the time was that he's still going to serve so much time for the other issues that it'll be with the consequence.
Which is a long litany. Again, I shed no tears for Derek Chauvin. I just shed no tears for George Floyd either.
Well, the monuments that they built to George Floyd, it's
unbelievable. It's like it's bad parody. It's a bad Babylon Bee. But the other thing big tech got caught doing is how they're targeting kids without parental control and refusing labor law protections on the grounds that anything big tech ever does is speech. So we can't notify parents that their kids are accessing something their parents don't want them to access.
Was this Instagram or was it YouTube?
That's for speech. It was big tech writ large, challenging in the California law. The California law was like, you got to at least make sure kids know and parents agree before kids use certain big tech services, because we're seeing all the mental health harm it's causing children. So they sued and said, we don't have to follow that law because anything we do is speech. And giving parental notifications is coerced speech, which is ridiculous. That's not coerced speech. That's conditions of access to a service, which we do all over the place. And they want to, because they see that courts buy into the idea that the First Amendment means big tech gets to do whatever it wants. That's how they interpret the First Amendment. And they're sincerely arguing that in front of federal courts as we speak, that they can lie to you about what they're doing with your kids. They can have your kids access things that you've specifically put in the program for them not to access without you even knowing about it, because they consider that their free speech right to harm your child.
They raised, now going back to the TikTok, actually, it's right back to the beginning. They raised the free speech arguments in TikTok, but it was not about the people's free speech to hear, which I've been told now by some American lawyers is a debunked theory, but people's free speech.
They're wrong. That it's not a debunked theory. The right to listen has been repeatedly reiterated in the Constitution, and the lying tech whore lawyers pretending to be First Amendment specialists who are nothing more than whores for big tech should quit lying to people about the law. Yes, your right to listen is included in the First Amendment. That's one of the things that always agitates me. There's no bigger liars and defrauders and fakers about what is and isn't in the First Amendment than big tech advocates.
Well, so that's interesting. I mean, so in the TikTok ban, they were arguing free speech for creators to use a platform of their choosing. Yep. Did I get a definitive? Did I ask you definitively? Do you think the ban, as at least on the calcium markets?
I think the ban is unconstitutional, but you can't trust this particular Supreme Court, unfortunately, in the big tech space, because several of them, like Barrett and Kavanaugh, just bow and cower in front of big tech.
All right, very interesting. Now we're 2 hours in.
Put corporate whores on the bench, everybody.
We're 2 hours in. What we're going to do is get ready to go over to locals exclusively in a few seconds here. Just read this
and just answer questions from the locals members.
We
So
got a
get your
lot there.
tip questions. You got to if you want to troll, you got to pay the toll. $5 tips or more. All those will get answered. And so don't put in like 45 $1 tips. Thank you.
Oh, I end up reading some of them by accident anyhow. But Pinochet's helicopter tours, video game companies in Hollywood, especially Disney, used AI reviews to counteract the audience dissatisfaction with their social messaging, toxic positivity.
I'm sure that's true. Yeah,
no doubt.
And there's so
Freddie
many bots out there these days.
but that's why I don't believe them. I don't believe Rotten Tomatoes anymore. I don't believe I don't believe anything anymore.
They're all fake.
Am I sharing the screen, or I have to refresh again? Let me just see something here. I thought of it.
I'm not seeing a screen.
Son of a beast thing. I'm going to refresh it.
Steve will be right back.
Going back. Okay, here. I'm telling you, something is happening with Rumble Studio. It's just okay. Now let me see if I can share again, because I want to just show it, and I also want to make sure before we get for a great guest interview. Or you see it now, Robert? I don't have my screen up. Yeah, we see it. Okay, good. I suggest John of Broken Truth. You've had his work on stream for your other guests before. You've had his work on stream from other guests before, for sure. I screen grabbed it. And then Freddie says, all face act prisoners, including Grandma, who judge told her to pray to her God that she would serve her sentence. All face act prisoners, I guess this means pardon, including Grandma, who judge told to pray to God that she would survive her sentence. Mother. All right, so that's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna go over to Locals. Give everybody the link one more time. Come on over. Supporters only, but come and be part of the cool kids if you want. If you don't, it'll all be on the internet tomorrow. Locals link here. Robert, what do you have coming up this week, schedule-wise? Anything?
Preparing for some trials, and then we had one bourbon last week. We'll have bourbons throughout this week as I kicked the cold, which was good.
And now I'm an idiot, Robert. Okay, we got new merch up at the merch store. And it is I Am Alex Jones in the beautiful pyramid format. I love it. This is beautiful. This is like I Am Spartacus, where once we allow something to happen to one person, we allow it to happen to everybody.
Were you able to add the store button to the Rumble?
Oh, not yet, because I totally forgot. So let me
cool. That looked like a cool thing. You can add a store button.
Is it a
right on
function?
your Rumble page?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'll make sure to remember to do that. So come on over to Locals, or get some merch at Viva Fry, or just snip, clip, share, because that's the best way to do it. We're going to end it. And I will wish all of you a good week. And Locals, we're going to have our after party. We're going to get to all of these questions. Bada bing, bada boom. Now, 30 seconds for everyone on Locals to decide whether or not they are staying as members or getting booted. The engaged few, $9, says, how hard would it be to dissolve the DC federal courts and send their judges off to get a real job? I know you've talked about it.
All. It's just political willpower. Congress has the full capacity to do so.
Great show again, gents. Go Lions, says Jedi Boar 1971. I don't know that's
means. That's the Detroit Lions. Might march on to the Super Bowl this year.
Up on the top, we've got a I'm going to show it. It was a $2 tip, but my goodness, it's when you're getting saved in a fire. It's a meme, everybody. Like, this is what the okay. That's not to make fun of anyone in particular, just the ideology.
But she did her own image of her running, and it was like, that's not inspiring at all. And she even said, if your husband needs saving, your husband's screwed.
Can you imagine being so? It's like saying, hey, well, if you got sexually assaulted, maybe you shouldn't have been out at night, like in that part of the neighborhood. It's beyond parody. It's actual disgustingness. JAsh62, $5 says, I live in Western North Carolina. We have over 100,000 houses destroyed or severely damaged. We had over 2,000 mudslides. Holy shit. In some spots, the rivers were 60 feet high. Thousands are dead, not hundreds. Over 500 miles of river, now creeks destroyed. Roads and bridges destroyed. Right now, 5,600 people vouchers ended, and people out of hotels in freezing temps. Some live in tents. The area of damage is equal to that of Massachusetts. Yeah, and FEMA, from what I understand, is like denying support or coverage for something.
And it's guess who some people can thank for even having a home at all in Western North Carolina. It's the Amish. The Amish came down there on their own dime, on their own time. FEMA was like, no, we're not going to let you build here. They're like, these people don't have homes. We're building for them. And so they built a bunch of homes overnight. And it's Amish carpentry. So those are going to be good homes. And so, again, thanks to the Amish for standing up for their neighbor in ways our own government won't do. By the way, you still have some cookies available. You can get as a special 1776 Law Center fundraiser available at AmosMillerOrganicFarm.com. He's made some special cookies available to VIP donors. There's only a few packages left, so you can still go there and get them. AmosMillerOrganicFarm.com and get that today. And toast the low IQ lardasses at the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, who, if anything is evident, apparently, they're the kind of people who are appointed to run the fire department in LA. Now people know what I'm looking at, right? Think of the visual of that that was provided by that fire chief. That's the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture for you, folks.
Jimmy P says this is going. I've been going back to the bottom. We're going to the top, going to the bottom. Viva the Simpsons episode that mentions the Ghana ambassador is where Lisa is Bart's babysitter. Thank you very much. Why would the ambassador?
I know, they forecast everything. Maybe we are in a simulation, and the Simpsons are the guide to it. Simpsons and the South Park are the Simpsons guides to the simulation.
It's the Easter eggs. No, they're the Easter eggs. The creator of the simulation puts those in just to see if anybody gets the joke. This is from Elliot. Says, I posted on VB Locals asking board members to comment with top appellate issues in New York cases. While FISA as an object or abject offense and jury unanimity got attention, my impression is that there has been a surprising absence of legal commentary on highly debatable pretrial rulings relating to the New York business records and election conspiracy statutes. I think such questions deserve scrutiny in the court of public opinion and shouldn't go on the back burner until the appellate court weighs in. I
agree with you. I mean, I think it's ridiculous how they're applying those statutes.
We got Nayoka. Nayoka is a new name. Oh, good. I thought we were starting this stream without the traditional Viva Tech issues. There would have been a ruined experience. Okay, I got that one earlier. How the fuck is Gavin Newsom still the front runner? Okay, I got that one. I'm going to cough. Hold on. Excuse me. Okay, so I got how familiar are you with the Corporate Transparency Act, CTA? In December, a federal district court ruled that the CTA is likely unconstitutional, placing a temporary ban on the enforcement of the CPA. The federal government has filed an appeal to the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. Do you think this attack on U.S. small business owners will fail in the long run?
Yeah, but so what happened is the court enjoyed. This was the thing that was going to require you to disclose who owned everything around you. So if you have any LLC, any entity, you're going to be required to tell the IRS who owns it, who's invested in it, who's given a share, all that nonsense. I don't think it's legal to begin with to require that degree of disclosure of information, but a lawsuit was filed, a federal court enjoined it and said you can't enforce this, but it was only as to the parties before them. But the IRS has taken the position that until that case is reversed, they are not going to seek to enforce the Corporate Transparency Act. So hopefully the act just gets thrown out like it should, because I think it's an information power grab by an agency not entitled to that information.
Okay. Then we got underneath was how likely would it be? Where am I? Oh, thank you, Viva and Robert Barnes. That's Susie C. Choosy Q says, how likely would it be that judges, lawyers, and politicians would be victims of the California fires? Might it change their political decisions in the future now that they are also directly affected? Two things, Robert. Did Gavin Newsom say that they're going to basically rebuild regardless of how much it costs, or they're going to be limited to certain
that part was unclear. Unclear what he's working
And do you think this changes the political directions of the state in the short to medium term?
Probably not, unfortunately.
That's very upsetting. Okay. I was going to say
I think Bass's career is over. I think the LA City people, but Newsom, he'll survive.
Wow. S. Ren says, one of my first thoughts on how many construction companies are in LA. Call them up and use them to make a fire break fast. They'll have all the dozers, wheel loaders, excavators. I bet they could have gotten it done in a day or two. Too stupid to be creative. That's S_Ren. Please see my comment. Thank you, says TOS forever. I don't know where the comment is. I'll see if I can find it. Viva, I work in California. We had homeless people accidentally start fires 3 times behind our office in 1 month. It was just a matter of time before something like this happened. One time they blew up a propane tank. California dreaming. That's from I Hate Death, aka Thanatophobia. And Grobert was talking about it yesterday as well. Greg 76.
They're using illegal drugs and they need it for their illegal drug use, and that also furthers the risk of fire, particularly when the winds are bad.
Greg 76 says, who is likely to benefit from the burning of California? Properties, companies like BlackRock or Vanguard?
Potentially. Well, we'll see in time.
There's one. It's a long one. Did I not get
I
this?
mean, that is
Derek
some of
Tyler.
the most valuable land in the world, right?
Yeah, that in Lahaina, Hawaii. It's kind of
Exactly.
amazing. It's
Yeah, I know.
good
You
evening,
start
David.
to wonder.
Yeah, well, I'm not down with the space lasers, but I'm down with exacerbating a
Or did
crisis.
you see in the like Dubai or UAE where they admitted that they've seeded clouds and then things got out of control, but that they were manipulating the weather? And I was
Well,
like, I kept watching. I was like, this is actually being reported in Forbes. I mean, Jones was telling me about this 20 years ago, but I was like, wow. So now it's out in the open that this is going on.
Well, what roof burning blue? Let me see if I can find this video. There was a video of directed energy showing that it didn't burn blue, which would explain why blue things, people are claiming blue things survived. I'll see if I can find that while you're giving an answer to another question. But hold on.
Someone had asked about donations to 1776 Law Center. It's not tracked or traced, so it's not tax deductible. But your name is never given to anybody either. That's the reason why I didn't want to create something that the IRS would know everybody who was contributing to and would have some control and legal authority over. So 1776 Law Center is just an LLC. I helped create it. It's run by other people, and it is the principal mechanism by which we're able to fund the support of Amos Miller's case, Kyle Rittenhouse's case, vaccine mandate cases, Brooke Jackson's case. A lot of your biggest cases we wouldn't have been able to support legally, but for 1776 Law Center getting the donations, whether it's through the Amos Miller fundraisers or the Barnes birthday party fundraisers, all those events is what makes it possible to do that representation in the first place. So thanks to everybody out there who continues to help at 1776 Law Center. And we're going to be expanding the t-shirt options so that you can pick your meme, because we got t-shirts made in America, the clothes themselves made in America, which is rare. If you go out there, most clothes not made in America. And we got the machine. We got the machine to make the shirts. So you can pick your meme and we can put it together for you. So that's what we're going to be doing as part of our New Year packages for 1776 Law Center. They made this one for me for Christmas because you got the eagle, you got the strong eagle, got the American flag, got a little Christmas thing there. So it's up and rolling. So that will be up and rolling throughout the year. But yes, it's not it's an LLC. It goes to charitable causes, but it's not a recorded charity, so the state and the federal government can't try to control it or shut it down, or know that you're even involved in it if you want to be involved in it.
That's particularly useful. Well, I mean, it wouldn't protect against hacks, but it would protect against hacks or at least disclosing to your ideological enemies.
Exactly. Like there's no list that you can that you won't find any.
Derek Tyler says, good evening, David and Robert. Good. Regarding Senator Lankford stating he will support Tulsi for DNA, stating his support had nothing to do with her reversal on the FISA warrants. He then lied to interviewers, saying 702s have nothing to do with the U.S. citizens. Lankford being the new chairman of the SSCI. Am I right that 702 warrants are all about U.S. citizens and that they are spearheaded?
I mean, they're not all about U.S. To give people an idea what was happening that got detailed in the first Intelligence Committee, which was actually an Intelligence Committee meant to govern the Intelligence Committee, not be their little bitch in Congress. But back when Frank Church created it after Jimmy Carter's election and everything that happened after the 74 Watergate, 76 to 78, they discovered that one of the ways that the government was illegally spying on Americans was they were calling it foreign intelligence gathering. They're like, oh, we're just recording conversations outside the United States, and
which implicate
happens to involve an American traveling overseas. Remember, that's how they got General Flynn. They were listening to General Flynn's conversation with the Russian ambassador through FISA. So as a mechanism, as always, this is how these scams work, as a tool to limit the ability of the government to gather that kind of information is how FISA got passed. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court were meant to limit the government's collection of information. Of course, what did they do? They took it as a green light to increase the amount of information they were getting. So it is true that it is supposed to be gathering intelligence from communications outside the United States by people who are not U.S. citizens. As a practical matter, 98% of what they gather at the NSA is by U.S. citizens.
Yeah, very interesting. And hold on, I think I just minimized this here. Let me see. $10. Good evening. Oh, that's what we just got there. I live in Western North Carolina, 100,000 houses destroyed, severely damaged. Okay, this one I got, and now I'm back up to speed here. Part of the scrutinized mortgage agreement is that the property is insured for a minimum of the loan amount or 80% of the appraised value. The lender will have already negotiated forced place insurance policies to insure the home when the borrower does not have protection. And that's coming from Crash Davis. Sweet innocent Viva, Biden is not going to pardon Trump unless Trump hands over some cold hard cash. Okay, I got that one. That was Beavis Wallace. Victor Cardone, if anyone thinks the American judiciary has any credibility left, they haven't been paying attention. Then we've got Will Rogers. Authorities must do a cell phone geolocation search for cell phones on Temescal Ridge Trail, where the Palisades fire was reported to have started. No power lines or poles in people. No power lines or people in the area. Interesting. Let's see, going down. So, Robert, what's Trump's path to eliminating the D.C. court? We got that. If someone had low-level glowies, we got that. Derek Tyler, good evening again. The cover-up, criminal liability. Oh, DeBondi, I got that question already. I read something about Tulsi being forced to promise to Pfizer. We got that. Robert, Viva, you may be incorrect. Okay, I got that. Many religious Jews viewed Zionism as heresy going back to the 1890s when the modern Zionist movement got its start. The anti-Zionist view is that only God was supposed to restore the Jewish homeland. That's from Jonathan G.
Yeah, that was another part. Right. You had the Jewish communists who are just anti-Jewish, period. And then you had the issue of Israel divided the Jewish community itself as to whether, but people should not ignore that the backdrop for it was centuries of harassment of Jews throughout Europe. And that's the part that some people just don't want to remember, want to conveniently forget.
All right, that's yeah, and I've also heard that. I know that's why some of the religious Jews in Israel don't believe in living only within the borders of Israel. Scroll down here. Let's see. The Biden administration disregarded all the laws regarding immigration. I got that. That was from B. Steen. Do you think RFK? I got that. Got that. Speaking of Zionists, do you think Thomas Massey's wife was killed? There's no indication for that, Robert.
No,
Right?
he has said cancer? No. He has said no.
Okay, well, and let's see here. For interview on your show, please check out Broken Truth. Got it. What do you think about Michael Cohen groveling for a pardon? I didn't hear it.
That's too funny.
You know, that's why he's been going so hard against Trump.
Biden might pardon him.
Mother Cabri. I haven't seen it, but that would be fitting for that little weasel accusing Trump of doing things for money when he's been bashing Trump. Hopefully,
like another guy that's probably going to be on that list that wants a pardon is Milley. Is Milley on the pardon list for Biden?
Not that I can see, actually.
But you know that Milley wants a pardon because that guy committed every crime known to man during the Trump administration. I mean, including every form of treasonous conduct you could think of. True seditious conduct was done by him. It doesn't meet the legal definition of treason because that requires declaration of war in America, but it is seditious conduct and other unbecoming conduct, at least worthy of a dishonorable discharge from the military, if not a further criminal prosecution, is what Milley did.
I'm going to go. His name was not on the list as far as I could tell. I'm going to go check for that again. Let's see here, Roosting. Where will War Room populist Steve Bannon fit in with the new Trump administration?
I think he's going to be on the outside, influencing the court of public opinion, and upon occasion, leveraging the court of public opinion to influence the Trump administration and members of Congress. I think that's what he's planning on doing.
He's I don't know. I would say more useful on the outside and probably happier with that position in any event, or that role.
And Steve's not a bashful guy. He's not a behind the scenes politics guy. So that was never a natural fit for him.
Could bars write? Maybe they meant bar. No, the S is not close enough to the S. Could bar write a post giving all the reasons to pardon people that were given?
Oh, they're saying me. Can I write something up that they can share?
Oh, Barnes. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mike. That was from Timmy O'Haley. B. Tessany, my question was for the Biden administration did not follow the law for 4 years. Why should Trump follow the law? So if Tulsi says okay to demands of Tom Cotton, what she then says is I'm in, so screw you, Tom Cotton. We discussed that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yes, of course you could always act accordingly once you're in position of power.
Now I'm going to go to the bottom and go back up. Life of Larry says, hey Viva, came across this YouTube channel, The Lookout. Zeke. Under 25 years experience in wildfire management in California water issues. Has a great interview with another wildlife analyst, Tim Chavez. History, check it out. Would be a good interview for sure. I'll check that out. Thanks, guys. Says, what a watermelon. Then we got that dog, that French bulldog, come in for Rena for real. Who do we have here? Pasha Moyer. For over a month, I've had to resort to watching your streams offline due to the need to care for my ailing dad. He is somewhat on the mend now, enough so that I've been watching live. What a treat it is, Pasha. Welcome back to the live show. Murkowski Cornyn a Rhino for ambassador. Murkowski Cornyn a Rhino RHINO for ambassador. That is from Delphar. Thanks, Robert. The Amish got on buses and came for 5 days at a time. They built awesome houses, and some local government has been shamed into letting people live in them. They were and are inspirational. We are very grateful to the loving kindness. It's amazing. I am Cam55 says, are donations made to 1776 law tax deductible? No, we answered that. I'm worried that the TikTok ban will lead to other social media sites like X and Truth to be targeted. Stingray. That's been my concern from the beginning, and I fleshed it out. LexisNexis and Westlaw are already using AI to assist, so it's here to stay. Heard a few talk about using AI mitigation. Your opinion? What's AI mitigation, Robert? I don't know what AI mitigation means.
I'm not what they mean by that. AI is connected to a bunch of legal research out there, so it's AI is definitely here to stay.
No. The only question is where for like artists create, like if AI can make an indistinguishable Taylor Swift new song, right, that's not actually hers. Is it?
And that's going through a bunch of litigation. There's a bunch of litigation over their use of other people's copyrights. That AI itself can't create a copyright, and when is it copyright infringement, and who do you get to sue? And then that's up in the air right now as to AI, because so much of AI is built on copyright infringement. It couldn't do what it does without infringing on copyright. So there'll be a propensity to protect it for that very reason, and not hold it to the same standards as anyone else would be for breaching copyright. But yeah, that's the big question. I mean, like the one of the big reasons for the strike out in Hollywood was that the belief is that AI will be able to replace screenwriters within 5 years or so. They'll replace most journalists, and in time they could replace a lot of doctors, lawyers, and other professions that are based on written, recorded information. AI has already passed all the different tests. The MCAT, the bar exams, etc. So where this is going to go is one big open, scary question.
This is amazing. What a watermelon says, thanks, guys. Then you should do a sidebar. This is from DTQC with Brian Lunduk. He's a populist tech journalist and covers culture war issues like Red Hat and IBM for sure. I've screen grabbed that and put it on the list. I've got Kaylin Georgescu. I might have Kaylin Georgescu on Wednesday. We're trying to solidify a time here. The Romanian, that'll be amazing. I'm only going to read it because I want to answer the question. Can Trump pardon Dexter Taylor? No, it's a state charge, nor can he pardon Tina Peters. We've discussed the ways to, I guess, put political pressure on whatever.
You could try, but you could issue the pardon, claim you have authority to issue the pardon. But it'd be difficult.
If he's convicted on a Second Amendment constitutional issue, I mean, that's a federal. Okay.
Right. Like the same with Peters, that it was a federal election that she was discussing.
Yeah.
That she was wanting to review the accuracy of. So that it's never been, to my knowledge, fully adjudicated. It appears on paper that it only applies to federal crimes, but it doesn't explicitly ever state that. And the question is, when it concerns federal authority or actions, could you extend the pardon power to state crimes that are only state crimes because of some federal law? And that's an open, undetermined question that most scholars believe, no, you can't pardon those as president, but there's some that say, yes, you can.
Ithaca 37 Cato says, I can't find the book Let Malibu Burn on Amazon. That's weird.
Or just look up Mike Davis, Urban Renewal, other things that he'll have the chapter in there, Burn Malibu Burn.
Okay. And then I think this might be the last one here. Let me see what's going on here. How damaging will it be when they blame Trump for the fall of Ukraine, says Boopsy. I don't think anyone's stupid enough to fall for that, blaming Trump.
You never know. I mean, they're going to blame Trump for what anything he does that they don't like.
They're blaming him for the fires in Malibu. He had mean responses, and he's. Exactly. Let me see here. We got. How can it be that a jury is required to come to a unanimous decision, yet the supposed superior legal minds of the Supreme Court are not required to do so?
That is a good point. There's a fair argument there. The jury unanimity existed at the time of our founding. The idea of multiple judges presiding over a court was kind of developed in America. So and they just decided to make it majority rather than unanimity.
And that was from Free the West. And then we got Dustin Cournoyer says, how did your makeup turn out for Megyn Kelly? Well, did you guys notice that I have a pimple on my lip today? If you didn't, it's because the makeup worked. It's here. Where is it? It's right there. It's a little pimple, and it drives me nuts. And I was going to try to make light of it and own it. Like, hey, guys, you're not going to be able to focus on anything.
How did you celebrate Trudeau's announcement that he's now finally going to be gone?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's not going to change anything. The replacement is going to be the new boss is going to be just as bad as the old boss. He hasn't really resigned yet. He'll never get his just desserts in this life on this earth, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't care, and it doesn't change anything. And I think his replacement is probably going to be either Chrystia Freeland or Mark Carney, both of whom are WEF stooges.
Did you run against Carney?
I ran against the astronaut Garneau, Mark Garneau. He was the one in my writing. He won, and then he got shuffled out, resigned, and given it some whatever. So no, I just say when Jagmeet Singh gets his ass kicked out of office, then I'm going to rejoice. I bookmarked a tweet from today. I hate that guy. What do you think of Kevin O'Leary buying TikTok? Says L Street.
He said he's considering it. Smart. Trump is opposed to this TikTok destruction, so he'll restore TikTok if the courts don't step in between now and Inauguration Day.
If anyone's going to buy it, also wouldn't mind Rumble buying it. I'm just not sure what the value is. Ithaca 37 Cato, I've heard the North Carolina tax man is still going to force the people whose homes were destroyed by the storm to pay their mortgage taxes. Could Trump admin stop that in some way? A bailout for the equivalent?
I mean, you can always give money directly to people, so that's probably the simplest way for the feds to get involved.
Robert, I dare say we've crushed it yet again for another fantastic evening of law discussion with among men and women and people who are interested in hearing the law. So my schedule, it looks like there might be a Kaylin Georgescu interview on Wednesday. Standard stuff. I'll be live and I'll have some guests, and it'll be cool. Robert, you stick around. We shall say our proper goodbyes. There's one more that just came in. Can't find the left wing. Oh no, that's just delayed over on Rumble Studio. So everyone, go and enjoy the night. I'll see you tomorrow. Barnes, we'll talk throughout the week, and everybody else out there, peace out, Godspeed, and God bless. Booyah.